580 Sports Talk coming to you on a Monday. An offsides penalty, turnovers, blaming officials, not getting the job done when it matters Monday.
You know, I also loved the end of the 2018 NFL season. Oh, no, we're talking about an offside penalty this year. Oh, no.
We got lots to get to.
They deported it, man.
We got lots to get to. Folks, we're going to talk plenty of Chiefs, plenty of NFL, dip our toe into a few different other topics, including some college hoops that occurred. We'll talk about Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. We'll hear from Big Red. We'll hear from Matt Verderame, get his take on what went down yesterday at Arrowhead. Lots to digest. We need your thoughts. Let us know. 785-272-9429, Chiefs fans. You can vent. You can vent your frustrations on the team. You can vent your frustrations on the refs. You can vent your frustrations on individuals. We are here for it all. Jake Vaughn, Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero with you on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. And I am not one who likes to complain about officials, affecting games. I am more about the accountability and doing your job. And right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are failing very, very flying colors failing in one aspect more than any other aspect. And that is attention to details. That is the reason why the Kansas City Chiefs right now stand a game ahead in the AFC West. That is what the Chiefs stand right now. The Broncos are playing well. They're 7-6. The Chiefs are 8-5. The good news is that you are 3-1 in the division, and the Broncos are 2-2, and you play the Chargers and the Raiders the rest of the way, plus the Patriots, which helps. But they are not paying attention to details, and that is something to me that the Kansas City Chiefs team has done in the past. Attention to details for me are as follows. Catching the football. That's a simple detail, right? Catching the football. Holding on to the football. Being secure with the football. Not turning it over. That is an attention to detail. Lining up on sides. That is an attention to detail. Running the right route is an attention to detail. They are not doing those things. Why did the Kansas City Chiefs lose the game yesterday? It was not anything except for attention to detail. You turn it over on the very first drive. It was rolling. You were good. And Patrick Mahomes, he is not above reproach. You can't throw that pass when you got a guy right in your face. You can't. I don't care how good of a play it was from the Buffalo Bills defense. I don't care. He was right in your face, and you just lollipopped it. And I'm going to stick my hands up in the air. Was it a good play? Yes. You can't throw that. Rashee Rice, you cannot fumble the football. The Chiefs driving down the field. Things are going good, right? Lining up on sides is something that is elementary. Like, I expect every high school wide receiver, when you line up on the ball, to look over to the official and say, hey, am I good? You know how many times I did that as a college wide receiver when I got into the game?
Every time?
Every damn time I lined up on the ball.
See, I don't even think that was, I don't even think about that, because when we say that in every high school game, I think every single high school coach that I've ever covered has told their receivers, check, because you stand on the sideline, Dan, you've seen this, I've seen this, you've seen this. Every receiver puts their hand out, looks at the ref, looks for either the little tip of the cap or the thumbs up. Just look at the ball. Just look to your right if your Kadarius Toney.
And that's why right now this Chiefs team in an entire whole season is attention to detail. The same mistakes that have happened in week 1 are happening now in week 13, or was it week 14?
Yeah, we're in week 14 now.
It's the same thing. It's turnovers. The Chiefs win this game if they don't turn it over.
Again.
The Chiefs win this game if you just line up properly. The Chiefs win this game if you don't drop passes.
Again.
It is not, it's who they are. And that's why in week 6, a third of the way through the season, we all talk about, can they change? Can they can this thing work? And the answer was, in past history, it says yes. We have faith in Mahomes. We have faith in Reed. At the halfway point, same situation. Can this offense, right now, this is who they are. This is it. This is what you get. This is a team that has lost the attention to detail. And when you lose the attention to detail, you end up losing games on the margins. That is what's happening right now for the Kansas City Chiefs. They are losing games on the small margins. They didn't line up properly. They line up properly, they win the game. If Kadarius Toney just lines up properly. But Rashee Rice, hold on to the ball. Like, if you have to right now, if you are the Chiefs, once you catch the ball, you need to cover him up with both hands and then run. Because it does no good trying to make a move and make a play when you fumble the ball. Like, that is it. There is nothing more that needs to be said about the Kansas City Chiefs on offense, because their offense does move the football unless they are the ones that screw it up. That is the Kansas City Chiefs right now. The defense was fine. I have no, if you want to nitpick at the defense, get better to start the game because they've given up two touchdowns early on. You're down
last 3 games now, yeah.
Down 14-0. That I can talk about, That is something that we can discuss, but that's not the reason why the Kansas City Chiefs lost this game.
I'm glad you said attention to detail. Those were the 3 words kind of ringing in my head.
It's so blatant, and it's so infuriating seeing that Chiefs fans and even the players are just yelling at the officials.
Well, you can't yell at Kadarius Toney. So, that's part of the issue, is that Patrick Mahomes can't get up behind that lectern and say, I got the best defense I've ever had as a pro, and we're worse because these knuckleheads at wide receiver keep dropping my passes. Because they do. Bill Barnwell has the stat. Wide receivers have dropped an even 8% of passes this year. That is the worst drop rate by any group of wideouts in the last decade of NFL football. And not by like a little bit, by a full percentage point. Like the previous worst is 7.0. Chiefs wide receivers are dropping 8% of Mahomes' passes and have rendered in the process this MVP all-world quarterback utterly mortal and human. And he had a very human moment yesterday after the game. He blew up about a small thing that he shouldn't have blown up about because an accumulation of small things made it feel like a big thing. And the accumulation of the small things is what has the Chiefs right now sitting where they're sitting. They're 8-5. They are all but assured they will not get the number 1 seed. They will not get that vital first round bye. They will very likely have to do something they've never done in the Mahomes era, and that is go on the road in the playoffs. That is a likely outcome. And it is no guarantee that they win their own division for the first time in the Mahomes-Reed era. I think they're going to. I don't think they're going to lose again, personally. I think they'll win their last 4, and maybe we can look back on this and have a good chortle in February if we're getting ready for Super Bowl 58. But right now, you've left yourself in a position where there are no guarantees, and it's just the attention to detail, the sloppiness of getting up to the line and not doing the bare minimum of making sure you're good. And look, was he like a full yard offside? No. His foot was over, like straddling the line of scrimmage. Creed Humphrey and a lot of centers, I think, in the league tend to kind of drag the ball back a little bit, like a quarter of a yard on the from the line of scrimmage when they get ready to snap it sometimes. So, like, don't look at the ball, look at the blue line. That's one of the rare times I'm going to say that. Look at the broadcast line. Like, Tony's not egregiously offsides. That's what got the Chiefs fired up, but he's offsides. Right?
Line up on sides.
The speed limit is the speed limit. Sometimes they write you a ticket for going 81 into 75. A lot of times they don't. But if they do, it's going to cost you money, right? Sometimes they're going to write you that ticket. So that's I get where the frustration comes from, and it's mounting because this is the time of year we've seen the Chiefs hit the gas and accelerate and sharpen their swords, collect the Infinity Stones, whatever analogy you want to use, and they're playing their best football this time of year. And it's December 11th, and they still look like they're in a little bit of crisis mode. That is unfamiliar territory for this group as they move forward. And so I can understand why you get a little bit frustrated about that. But another thing I wanted to point out when it comes to attention to detail, did you notice how often when the Bills made a tackle, they were trying to rip the ball out?
Every time.
Because they know the Chiefs are going to do it.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I don't see the Chiefs do that to other teams. I don't see like other teams do that. I watch a lot of football. I don't see on every tackle people trying to rip the ball out. I noticed it. It was obvious that that's what the Bills were trying to do to the Chiefs. They were trying to do it to Kelsey. They were trying to do it to Rashee Rice. And what do you know? Rashee Rice fumbles, and it kills a drive that stalls out at midfield that might have been points, might have been vital points in a game that you end up losing by 3 points. We have talked all year about the Bills in the context of, man, they're a lot better than their record. Like, they're winning games big, and they're better than their record. They just make these crucial mistakes. Like, the Chiefs and the Bills are the Superman meme, right? Like, they're pointing at the Spider-Man meme. They're pointing at each other. They're the same team. It's the same conversation. That's what these Chiefs are too. It is rare that they are this. They have not previously been this. Faith in Reed and Mahomes as individuals is still very much justified, but the attention to detail continues to lack, and I don't know how much you can expect these wide receivers to suddenly change their spots in the final 4 weeks of the season.
I said this to Dan last night while we were doing the instant reaction show on YouTube, and would love for you guys to go check that out. It's on our YouTube channel called 580 Sports Talk. It's not anything new, but it is just more and more glaring every week that when you have these little mistakes, and like I told you yesterday, Dan, this Chiefs team during the Andy Reid era, they've never been like no penalties a game. Like, yeah, this isn't like watching Army where they might not be good, but they're not going to commit any damn penalties. Like, no, that's not what this team is. In fact, the Chiefs often are near the top of the league in terms of numbers of penalties committed. But you can make up for that when you've got really good playmakers across your offense who are making up for it. And right now,
3rd and 15 is not a big deal when you have Tyreek Hill and prime Travis Kelsey to throw the ball down the field. You can get 3rd and 15. You can wipe out that first down false start. You can wipe out that second down holding. It's a lot hard to do that when you're throwing to Richie James on 2nd and 17.
Yeah, and just go down the list. And I think, like, the running the ball, we know what the Chiefs do. All in all, you take everybody who ran the ball yesterday, ended up 18 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown, which is
4.5 yards to carry is fine.
That's effectively what Isaiah Pacheco does every game anyway, so you're not losing a whole lot there. But just look at your pass catchers. Kelsey was good, 6 for 83. You'll take that from a tight end.
Yep.
Rashee Rice did have the fumble. That's bad. Other than that, he played really well in the game.
Yes.
Highs and lows. He's a rookie, though. Like, that's a built-in part of the rookie wide receiver experience. So I'm willing to grade on at least a little bit of a curve with him, even though we're deep into his rookie year. Look at the other guys who are out there. Your highest paid wide receiver, and we know he sucks at this point. Your highest paid wide receiver is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He made that sliding catch for 7 yards. He had 2 for 22. I didn't even remember his first catch of the day. That's all he did. That's your highest paid wide receiver.
It was a wide receiver screen.
Richie James, yeah, you're right about that. Richie James, like, not
even on the
it is
roster.
what it is at this point. He's a kick returner, and he comes in every once in a while. Did you know Sky Moore played 35 snaps yesterday? I didn't.
They threw him the ball one time.
35 snaps. That's a second-year, second-round pick. Justin Watson. Now we have the snap counts. I'll build on what I told you yesterday. Do you know how many snaps, without looking, how many snaps Justin Watson has played in the last 2 weeks?
Oh, it's got to be close to 60.
Close to 60? We're getting closer to 80. 76 snaps in the last 2 weeks. 40 a week ago, 36 yesterday. How many targets?
2. One target.
One target,
Hey,
one catch.
At least he caught it.
18 yards in 76 snaps. And at that point, this is sort of what I think it was Matt Verderame when we talked to him last week. At this point, like with a Watson, it's not his fault. Like, he is what he is. We're deep enough into the season. We know what these guys are. But you can't you can never play Sky Moore, and you can never play MVS, and you can barely play Justin Watson. And Richie James has missed so much of the season. He barely knows the playbook. You can't play him a whole lot. and Kadarius Toney can't catch the ball and he makes too many dumb mistakes, you're out of wide receivers. That's what you have. That is your roster. So
12 personnel with 2 running backs? Like, what does that leave you?
Well, yeah, you're going to put Kelsey, Gray, and Bell all on the field at the same time with McKinnon and Pacheco?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to run 23 personnel? Like, what else do you do? And that sucks, but it is what it is.
This is an off-season issue that was let's just call it what it was. It was a bad evaluation by Brett Veach.
Brett Veach has done an outstanding job in his time building this roster.
Mm-hmm.
They've won 2 Super Bowls. I don't think anybody can say he's bad at his job, but sometimes Willie Mays strikes out. Sometimes you go for 4.
I mean,
and they did. They whiffed. They have made a mess of the evaluation of their skill talent around Mahomes.
And that happens with a good GM. Like, Brett Veach is a good drafter. This Chiefs front office, they're good at drafting. 2018, disaster.
Yeah,
horrible draft.
Not a good draft.
But that happens sometimes. This year, the free agent, veteran market, and the wide receiver draft, they got Rice. That was a good pick. But other than that, like, they didn't do enough there.
No.
And what's funny is, as big of a miss as they've had at the wide receiver position, it is still fixable current as it stands. Like, I am not going to give any benefit to, they normally tell you to line up. No, I'm not part of that camp. Well, you look to the side and they shouldn't have called that one. No, it is attention to detail, right? Like, Ed Reed was the one who said it best. Remember in one of the NFL Films breakdowns, Ed Reed, picked up trash and everything. It's the attention to detail. If you do something in the attention to detail all the time, it becomes a habit. Right now, the Chiefs are just winging it. Like, I'm just going to line up and we'll call it good, right? I'm just going to catch it and go. Like, no, they have a type right now. And that type is, I'm not focused. Like, everything that they are poor at is focus. Plain and simple. Not valuing the ball, turning it over. Not valuing where you're lining up. Lack of focus. Not catching the ball. Lack of focus. I mean, if you just don't turn it over, the Chiefs get minimum of field goal the very first drive because Butker's good from 60 in. That's a field goal. It's a field goal.
Yeah, they were rolling.
It's a field goal. Yeah. So that's 3 points. 3 points a big deal in this game?
Ended up being a pretty big deal.
If Rashee Rice doesn't fumble it, what probably happens? They're at midfield. They probably get a field goal. Like, there you go. And that doesn't even include lining up offsides and all that. You just can't turn it over. But that is what this team is, and they're not changing. Like, this is what you get.
We're too far into the year for that to
what
change.
You get.
Yeah.
And it started to creep its ugly head about halfway through the season. And after the Eagle game, to me, which was 4 games ago, that was, I believe, 4 games ago.
Yes.
That was the game that I said, nope, that's who they are. And the last 3 games right now against the Raiders, Packers, and Bills, that's who the Chiefs are. This is who they are.
And if you want to go back to the big talking point, what everybody wanted to talk about this, and it's how Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid reacted to the way this game ended. And for a relatively mild-mannered coach who gives you nothing behind the podium ever to talk about it being an embarrassment to the NFL, and to a minor-mannered quarterback who just last week deflected an even worse, like an actual bad call by an official by saying, that's not a big deal. I kind of like it when they let us play. We got to be better. We just got to be better. To deflect a week ago and to have the reaction that he did yesterday, it tells you that the Chiefs know it too.
Mm-hmm.
That they know that there's a level that they have to get to win a championship. It's a level they're very familiar with because they've gotten there over and over and over again. And they know that there is something that is keeping this team from getting to that level this year. And it's something they can't really readily fix.
Yeah, they got the talent to win it all. No question.
Somebody has to win the Super Bowl this year. Like, people want to say, it ain't going to be the Chiefs. Somebody tell me why the hell not? Why? Like, seriously, somebody has to win. They are going to award a Lombardi trophy, and every other team in this league is flawed in a big way, not just the Chiefs. The talent is there. Are they going to pay attention to the details? If they could, you'd think they'd have started by now.
Coming up next, we'll go around the NFL here on 580 Sports Talk. the NFL here on 580 Sports Talk. What game stood out for you?
I mean, it's got to be Sunday Night Football. There were a few that I thought were intriguing, that were interesting from the weekend, but it's got to be last night. And I was a little bit worried about this Eagles team. I don't think they're as good as they were a year ago. I've given my reasons for that, but I have also, I'm always ready to hear bad things about Dak Prescott. I'm sure he is a lovely guy and he's a fine football player, but you give me all the Dak Prescott hate any given time. Fill it up like a pig at the trough. Oink, oink, oink. Give me all of the pig slop about Dak Prescott. And I don't have any this year. Like, he's playing out of his mind.
He might be
right
your
now.
MVP leader after that performance.
And I know you think he is.
So do the sports books.
Yeah.
He's the betting favorite of both FanDuel and DraftKings after last night.
He's played great. And I've been known, I don't think Dak Prescott will win anything for the Cowboys.
Same.
And I have no problem saying that right now he's playing great and the Cowboys are playing pretty darn well.
Also notable, biggest difference for the Eagles, that is 2 weeks in a row against the other two best teams in the NFC. They haven't been beaten. They've gotten their ass kicked.
Yeah,
they've been dominated.
Yeah. They look like they're on fumes a little bit.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered, having so many important games.
I mean, they went Chiefs,
Bills, 49ers,
Cowboys. Brutal.
That is like that's a lot of heavyweight fights to get up for week in and week out. They didn't have like a game against the Commanders or the Panthers or somebody like that kind of in between to break it up. That's a tough spot on the schedule. And I think that as much as there are actual problems with like the scheme and actual problems with the talent right now, I think they're kind of out on their feet a little bit. They need to gather themselves. Fortunately for them, they get the Seahawks, who are going in the absolute wrong direction next week.
Biggest game for the weekend for me, almost benefited the Chiefs, but it's the Ravens getting a win against the Rams. Man, the Rams are that pesky team that nobody thinks is very good, but they honestly gave the Rams or the Ravens all they wanted, and the Ravens got a punt return, walk-off punt return in overtime. That was a big win for Baltimore, because if Baltimore loses that one, that's why this was such a big day for the Chiefs. One, you could bury the Bills. The Bills could have been cooked. They'd have been 6-7. They're not making the playoffs. And if Baltimore loses, then you're only one game back of Baltimore. Now you're 2 games back of Baltimore. The nice thing is with the Dolphins, at least you have the tiebreaker over them and the Jacksonville Jaguars. But that's my big game, was that Baltimore found a way to get a win and stays atop the AFC.
My big game of the weekend was Vikings Raiders. That was art. I wish
more like fart.
I wish they had put that on television instead of Chiefs Bills. I think I would have enjoyed watching it more, to be completely honest with you. The Vikings kicked a field goal after the 2-minute warning. That was the only scoring play of the entire game. A 3-0 win for the Vikings over the Raiders. I wish I had gotten to see that game. I hope that they put a display at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton and just play that game over and over again.
3-0.
That game, one of the games that came up a lot yesterday was when the Steelers beat the Dolphins 3-0 in 2007. That game was played in a monsoon, a game in which punts didn't bounce off the turf. They just got stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
The game yesterday
was
indoors. They played that in a climate-controlled dome.
No, there's a lot of wind, a lot of rain.
A lot of hot air from the sidelines of those two teams, maybe.
As they say on social media, the Linsanity run for Josh Dobbs is over. That is over.
Dog got replaced by Nick Mullins.
In all seriousness, though, big wins this weekend for some AFC wildcard contenders with backup quarterbacks. Cleveland,
they're in. They're in. Baby.
They are a play. As much as they've been dealing with, they've got Joe Flacco turning back the clock, and then I'm ready to have a conversation about Joe Burrow being a system QB when everyone else is, because Jake Browning has stepped in and is completing 80% of his passes for a Bengals team that all of a sudden looks frisky.
Yeah, Jake Browning's average depth of target. Jake is telling me my microphone's off.
Yes, I don't know why. I didn't do anything.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I like faintly.
I can't hear myself.
I can't hear you.
What?
Either way, the average depth of target. There we go. We're back. The average depth of target for Jake Browning's passes is about the difference between me to my computer screen right here. So I'm not quite ready for that discussion yet.
Screen pass merchant Jake Browning.
No, the Browns got a big win. I'll say it. the Broncos, I mean, they're staying with it. They're 7-6. There's a decent chance they make the playoff.
They've got a formula: one short field touchdown off a turnover, one crazy Cortland Sutton catch on a deep ball, and one good drive a game, and that's been enough.
And you ready for this? Here's their schedule. At the Lions, who that's a big loss for the Lions, losing to the Bears. Patriots, Chargers, Raiders. That ain't that could be 4 wins right there. Denver could end up with 11 wins. They really, really could. That's why the Chiefs play the exact same schedule, except the Chiefs get the Bengals, and they still play the Patriots, Chargers, and the Raiders. So I think the Broncos, after that dreadful start, going to find a way to make the playoffs. I think the Browns are going to make the playoffs. And then it comes down to who's going to be your third team. Is it going to be the Texans? Is it going to be the Colts? Is it going to be the Steelers? Or is it going to be the Bills? I think that's going to be your AFC playoffs when it comes to this. Houston losing to the Jets, not just losing, got smacked. The Bears losing, the Lions losing, that pretty much cooks the Lions for trying to win the 1 or the 2 seed. Because I think the 1 or the 2 seed easily going to end up with the Cowboys or the 49ers or the Eagles, one of those 3 teams. I don't see the Lions doing that. So there's a lot of possibilities that have opened up. Really, really has for the NFL. We'll get to plenty more. We're going to talk about the reaction from Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. We will get to that. We'll also talk, coming up next, the national champion runner-ups. That's right. The Washburn women's soccer team fell to Point Loma 1-0 in the title game on Saturday. We're going to talk with the head coach of the Washburn women's soccer team, Davy Phillips, coming up next. Back into 580 Sports Talk. Jake Laban, Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero with you. We got plenty more to get to on this reaction to the Chiefs losing to the Buffalo Bills in yet the same book and the same ending of the movie that we have many a time this year. The Eagles game, the Packers game, the Broncos game, Same type of movie ending for the Kansas City Chiefs. From the text line, I put part of the blame on the Chiefs' failures lately on Nagy as well. I see a huge difference in the style of play between him and Eric Bieniemy. I've seen this a little bit. This is, to me, nothing to do with the Chiefs' offense is Eric Bieniemy or Matt Nagy. It has nothing to do with it. This is Andy Reid's offense. If you want to talk about other aspects of it, then maybe, potentially, I'm with you on that one. So we'll get to more of that coming up. We'll talk with Matt Verderame. We got the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll discuss all of that coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. But right now, we are going to talk all things congratulations that go out to the Washburn women's soccer team as they went all the way to the national championship game. They beat and took care of business against the Delphi on Thursday last week. They go to the national title game, and it was a fantastic game against a really good Point Loma team. They scored in the second half to win 1-0. Washburn comes away as national runners-up in the greatest season in Washburn women's soccer history. That is not hyperbole. That is not a debate. This is by far the best season in the history of the Washburn women's soccer history. And we bring in the head coach of the Washburn women's soccer team, Davy Phillips, joining us. Davy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us on an incredible season. I know it didn't end the way you wanted it to, but national runners up. What an unbelievable year you had. Congratulations, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was quite a journey. I'm happy to join you.
When it comes to kind of putting a bow on all of this, I know it wasn't the end goal. I know it wasn't the national title, but how do you still take away, and maybe it's too early. It's not, been long enough and the wound's still kind of fresh, but how do you make sure that you really do smile and look back and go, look what we did this year, despite not getting to the top of the mountain?
Yeah, no, it's incredible. From day one, we kind of talked about just it's a journey of maximizing our potential, right? And I think the girls did that at a really high level. So super proud of them. Like you said, I want the national championship. We want the national championship, but to win the conference, to win the region, and to play for a national championship, there's a lot to be proud of.
When it comes to kind of your run through the region and getting all the way to where it's at, what would you say that this team improved upon the most, taking care of some really tight games and playing such great defense, pitching a lot of shutouts? What would you say that this team improved upon the most to get to the national title game?
It's kind of a nuance, but I think the winning decisions, right, that it requires to play at such an elevated level. We did a really great job of risk management at the same time, trying to control the game and create chances. That's something I think you get better at as the year goes on and as you play games. It's not something you really work on in preseason. But throughout the course of the year, the girls did a really amazing job, and it turned into a team that we were really hard to beat because of those little nuances of the game.
When did you realize there in the match against the Delphi that you know what, we're going to eventually get a goal? You guys were really on the attack against a Delphi. You really, really were. Did you feel like that goal was coming in the semifinal game?
Yeah, I thought credit to them. They're really good. They were organized. They dropped and created a really deep line, so they limited the space we could attack in, but gave us a lot of possession. So I thought the goal was always coming. I think if you let us have the ball for 90 minutes, we've got enough tools that we're going to break you down, and we can, like we've talked about previous in the year, we can score in a lot of different ways, but we can play in a lot of different ways. And so I was confident. I thought we were unlucky a couple times leading up to the goal, but credit to my team, they just stayed the course, and the goal came. So it was a really good performance. I think that was our highest shot total of the season with 20. So, I thought the goal was always coming, to be honest.
In the national title game, it looked like watching it, and I hope you realize how many people watched this game from various spots around the city of Topeka, Davy. There were a lot of people there. Even though we weren't in North Carolina, we were watching it. And myself and my wife were watching it, and it felt like Point Loma honestly was one of the best teams that you did have faced, because that team looked a lot different than even the team that you faced in Grand Valley and in the semifinal game in Adelphi. That team looked as though they were better than the previous opponents that you have faced.
Yeah, they were really good. I thought they executed just a step more than we did on the day. I don't think we were quite at 100%. We put in a really good performance, and it was an incredible national championship game. But I thought we were a step off from being our very best, and I thought they executed really, really well on the day. So, yeah, no, all credit to Point Loma. I thought they were the better team. I thought we had chances, but I thought they were the better team and probably deserved it in the end.
Every coach looks back on, those type of games and says, man, I wish I would have done this differently. Is there something that you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, I thought we could have drawn a higher line. I thought we kind of reacted to the goal in a really positive way, but I thought we probably could have drawn a higher line leading up to that moment. But other than that, it's a really hard run. I thought our girls stayed super engaged in the whole season from day one to that. And so to go back and say, oh, I wish I could have, like you said, every coach can do that. But I was really proud of our performance, and I thought we were pretty close to truly maximizing our potential this year.
We're talking with the head coach of the Washburn women's soccer team, Davy Phillips, joining us. And the Washburn women's soccer team, national runners up, falling in the championship game on Saturday. 21-4-1 is the final record that this team put together. Did you think that was possible this year?
Something I've always told people, I expect to win everything I do, whether it's darts, one-on-one basketball, Now, the reality of that is probably a bit skewed. But, why play if you don't think you're going to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the possibility is there, right? And I have really high standards. In the national semifinal, that was my locker room talk. I thought some of the girls got frustrated the goal didn't come. And I said, listen, we're here because I have really high standards for you guys, right? So I expect us to win every game we can, we compete in. But to say, no, we're going to win 21 games, that's wild, right? You only schedule 18 games. And so to say you're going to win 21 is an incredible journey.
Alrighty, you talked about what you said at halftime. What did you say to the team after the game? Because obviously you got a lot of dejected players. What do you say in that moment as a head coach?
Just what I told you. We've been really committed to being on this journey of self-improvement and maximizing potential. And they, I just told them to be really proud and to swell your heart with pride, because we truly, I thought, maximized potential and competed every single day. And I think, as a coach, if you can get your team to really compete, not just show up and play, but really compete every single day, and you recruit student athletes, I think you're going to have a chance at things. And so to see it come to fruition, I was, beyond the moon proud. And, I thought the girls handled it really well. And after 10 or 15 minutes of the initial disappointment, it kind of started to soak in how special it was, and you could see some pride taking over in some of their faces and body language.
I got to ask about a couple of your players. Chloe Shuckman, an incredible year. What can you say about Chloe Shuckman and what she did this year?
Yeah, she's a handful athletically, and she's done that since the sophomore in high school, really. She's a terrific teammate. Her dad is a longtime football coach at Bishop Carroll. And every time I have the one-on-one with Chloe, it always comes back to just being a really good teammate. And I think she had 11 goals, but she does so much to create for other people. She draws so much attention that she really is. She's a great teammate. She's a terrific player. She's a great leader. And it's someone on the team the girls look up to. And so her work rate and what she does off the ball, it has the ability to inspire other work rate. And I think that may be one of her biggest strengths, is just her ability to inspire her teammates.
How about the goal scorer, freshman right here in Topeka, McKinley Roan? Pretty wild that someone that young is able to put together a season like she did.
Yeah, I think the strength is in the collective. I think what we do is built around, you guys were talking about system quarterbacks, but, you put good players into a system and everyone just is allowed to fulfill their function. Good things happen as a team, and then good things happen to individuals as a byproduct of that. And so McKinley's come in. She's worked extremely hard. She was ready to compete in college athletics from day one as a freshman, and that's really hard to do. So she's come in, she's competed, and she's surrounded by really good players who, like her goal, for example, Chloe Shuckman did a lot to create that, hit a really good shot. Goalkeeper made an unbelievable save. And Mac, she just is an attacker who is always looking for opportunities to either create an assist or get a goal. So she was in the right place, looking to pounce on any rebound, and did a really good job finishing that one.
You can't help but notice, Davey, not a lot of seniors on this team. Want to give a shout out to the goalie or the goalkeeper of the year in the MIAA, Reagan Wells, being a senior. But a lot of your players, they're coming back, including All-American Jordan Tempest. We mentioned before earlier this year talking with you, Anna Maruzabal. You also have Belle Kennedy, another Washburn Rural kid. I got to imagine this team feels like, hey, we can do this again next year.
Yeah, I think you asked about kind of the disappointment on their faces and how it started to change. I think you could almost feel like some fuel in the fire starting to be added, and they wanted the whole plane ride home. Was speaking about next year and how ready they are. So I'm excited for spring training with that kind of motivation as a coach. But it's a young team. I thought there were moments of nerves and having that experience. I'm hopeful that it can lead us to, another really good run next year, because I think we'll have the personnel to do it.
Davey, congratulations on an unbelievable year. 21 wins. You are national runners up. It's been a lot of fun following you and this team. And it should be a lot of fun next year. The Washburn women went 10-1 at home, folks. Head to Yager Stadium next year for some women's soccer. It's a lot of fun. Davey, congratulations on an unbelievable year. We appreciate the time, and now you hopefully will get to sleep in a little bit here these next couple of days.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at Yager Stadium, there's a great celebration to celebrate the entire institution. It's an incredible place to go and an incredible place to work. So thanks for having me, Jake.
That is Davy Phillips. He's right. You got a 6 o'clock, basically a pep rally, welcoming back the Washburn women's soccer team to Topeka. It should be a lot of fun. Come out, support them. National runners up for the Washburn women's soccer team. That's really, really cool. Lot of young and local kids who are on this roster. Mentioned just a few of them here in the state of Kansas and around the area. Coming up next, we'll take a quick final break. We'll get back. We'll wrap up this 2 o'clock hour here on 580 Sports Talk. we'll hear from Matt Verderame, get his take on the Kansas City Chiefs coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. I don't know where he's going to go. Is he just going to say, no, the Chiefs don't know how to line up? The Chiefs screw this up all the time. Why are you complaining? I like Matt because he's so unfiltered. And he doesn't give you a, local point of view.
You see, we got Zapruder film now from the stands that appears to show that Tony is at least reaching towards the sideline in a gesture that could potentially be interpreted as trying to make sure that he's onside. It's a sloppy gesture, though. It just kind of goes back to the point that you made.
Attention to detail.
Yes.
Mitchell Schwartz tweeted about this. By the way, Mitchell Schwartz is going to pop up in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly coming up next hour. But Brian Baldinger had video from the All-22 of Tony just kind of like looking at the sideline, flashing his hand, whatever. And Mitchell Schwartz put on Twitter, it does has the video here. If Tony checked in with the ref, doesn't look like it. Although you don't see them break the huddle, I think if he did turn to the ref, he simply pointed and never got confirmation, which is as good as not even turning.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I mean but attention to detail. You've got to go. You have to be committed to the process. If you want to be at your best, you have to be committed to the grind, to the process.
Because we've all cut corners, right? Everybody
never
listening,
actually, not once.
And everybody in this conglomeration of folks.
Well, except you and I. Brendan hasn't. Pretty impressive, Brendan.
But that's amazing.
Never was.
You should write a book. But Jake and I, we can relate. We've all been that's good enough.
Yeah.
If you're mowing your lawn and you didn't get all of the leaves mulched, you say, that's fine. Yeah, it's good enough. We've all been there, but that can be a really costly mistake sometimes, particularly when a football game is on the line.
It's like Office Space, right? He made a simple mistake. A decimal point.
Yeah.
A decimal point
kind
of ended up being a big deal. Well, technically in that movie it didn't because the place burned down. But you get my point. You get my point is that just you gotta, it's like lining up with your foot on the line on a free throw. This is where I don't have any sympathy. I don't. That is if it were a holding call, I would be more upset.
Mm-hmm. Or missed pass interference.
I'd be more upset. This is all on Kadarius Toney. This is all on Rashee Rice holding. And I just want to call out Kadarius Toney here. Mahomes throwing a football right to Epinesa. I know everybody's that was a great play. He threw it literally right to him. He could just deflect it up in the air and caught it. You can't make that pass. You can't. You hold on to the football. This is not.
That's a broader point too. I think we haven't really gotten to that is an individual making a play for the Bills in a way that the Chiefs did force a turnover. Shamari Connor, first career interception, right place, right time. Josh Allen's going to throw you at least one.
Yep.
But where are those moments? When we talk about when Trent McDuffie stripped Tyreek Hill in the Miami game, that's a guy making a play on defense. And as good as the Chiefs defense has been, they have lacked that ability to go out and not just get a stop. It's one thing to get a stop. Go make a game-changing field-flipping play that turns the momentum of the football game. If you fall on Latavius Murray's fumble instead of that ball going out of bounds.
Yeah.
A play like that. The Chiefs defense, good as they've been, great as they've been missing that.
Coming up, we got lots more to get to here in the 3 o'clock hour.
It's the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. Brenton and Dan here with you.
Jake's here somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know where Jake is. I walked by his office. He wasn't in there. He's not across from me right now. So,
do we want to put Jake Cam up on the on the YouTube stream?
In case you also needed proof, yeah, Jake has
Jake Cam
abandoned us. Can't wait to find out that he walks in here like 3:09 and didn't look at the clock. Anyway, we've got a lot to get to here in this 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. That starts with your texts and your comments on the YouTube stream. Text line number 785-272-9429. You can also find us on YouTube. Our stream can be found on our channel, which is called 580 Sports Talk. Boom, easy. Search on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. We're the first result. Very, very easy to find us and our live stream every day. Make sure you subscribe. Check out our Chiefs Instant Reaction show from last night and all the other video content we have up on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube channel. We'll get to the Chiefs post-game comments about officials and more on what Andy Reid had to say about them today coming up here in just a moment. We'll also hear from Big Red later on in the show today. We've got the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend. And we'll talk to Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. He'll join us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for our weekly look around the NFL. Get the always blunt thoughts from Matt Verderame coming up in just a little bit. The post-game comments that the Chiefs made yesterday. Well, first, let's give you a timeline, right? We have Kadarius Toney lining up in the neutral zone, and he gets flagged for offensive offside. The first time in Andy Reid's entire career as a head coach that had been called against his team. They had that on SportsCenter with SVP last night. Over 25,000 offensive snaps for Andy Reid's teams as a head coach. That was the first time ever his team had been flagged for that.
And so I absolutely believe him, and I believed him even before I saw that stat last night. Like when he says, usually you get an official say something to the player, say something to a coach. Hey, you're not lined up right. Hey, you're a scotch ahead of the line there with a hand or with the face mask or whatever it is with the toes. I absolutely believe Andy Reid. He's only been in the league, longer than I've been alive, just about. Like I believe that perspective.
Yeah,
I do 100%.
So that happens. The Chiefs do not end up scoring on that drive. Patrick Mahomes goes to the sideline and loses his mind. He's slamming his helmet. He's screaming at people. I couldn't even tell who he was just screaming at first. Jake, thanks for joining us. Did you forget to look at the clock?
No, I had a personal situation.
Okay.
Involving 2 little children.
Hey, it happens sometimes.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
All good.
All right. So I just assumed you didn't look at the clock and we're
Oh, no.
else.
I looked at it. I was like, I said, I got to talk.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I got to take care of that.
So Mahomes loses his mind on the sideline. Then we get to, and he's screaming at referees. He has to be held back by his own teammates. Also, Joe Thuney is a lot bigger than Patrick Mahomes, by the way, in case you were curious about that.
The way they shot it on the sideline, at first I thought he was going after like a coach.
I thought he was going after Kadarius Toney. I thought that because you saw only from behind, and could you blame him? Not really. Then we get to postgame. Mahomes is saying this is bad for football, and this is bad for Travis Kelce's Hall of Fame career, that this play isn't going to get shown anymore, which is outrageous. Andy Reid says it's a bad look for the NFL.
Embarrassing is the word.
Embarrassing, yeah. I mean, this is as outwardly aggressive and antagonistic toward officiating as the Chiefs, any of the Chiefs ever get. Anything this side of that dude couldn't work at bleeping Foot Locker. Like, this is the most we've ever heard from this Chiefs era go after officiating.
And to be fair, that was what, 7 years ago?
I think 7, yeah.
6-7 years ago that Kelce
2017?
Yeah, January 2017.
No, that was 2016.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the 16 season.
Yeah. So 7 years.
Yeah. Travis Kelce's a bit of a different guy.
A little bit
now. And even you bring up Kelce, it was such a stark contrast to how the Chiefs handled the aftermath of the Green Bay game, where there was a bit more of what you could call a miscarriage of officiating justice that occurred that hurt the Chiefs' chances to win the game. When that defensive pass interference was not called against Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Chiefs have, they've got to score and get the 2-point conversion just to tie, but they got first and goal from the 5. it dramatically increases their odds in that moment of doing what they need to do to win the game. After that game, Andy Reid deflected officials' criticism. Patrick Mahomes deflected criticism of the officials. I think what he said was, yeah, I like it when they let him play. Travis Kelce deflected that criticism of the officials, said, I think what he said was something like, the last thing we're going to do is sit here and blame the refs after a game. So to go from that in 1 week to the reaction yesterday, that tells me that it was not really about a flag being thrown on Kadarius Toney for being offside. That it's a season's worth of frustration in not being able to meet the moment, not being able to win the close game, little attention to detail moments that are getting overlooked and that are getting the Chiefs beat. They keep happening, and we're in December and they keep happening, and it's the go zone, and these things keep happening, and you keep losing games this way. Then yeah, I understand where the frustration comes from. It's about the call, but it's also not really about whether or not Kadarius Toney was offsides, because he was.
It's clear the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers and the offense broke Mahomes. Like, and everybody's got a breaking point, right? We've all wondered, how long is it going to take for, Patrick Mahomes to actually throw someone under the bus? Well, he hasn't. But we've never seen him like this with the officials, because the week before, let him play. Got to let him play, right?
A far worse call last week.
Same thing. In the AFC title game in 2018, you've never heard Patrick Mahomes go after officials. He will never call out a player, even if it's 1,000% warranted. This broke Patrick Mahomes. And Andy Reid is now doing the same thing, because he can't say, because what they want to say is very, very simple. Certain individuals need to pull their you-know-what out of their you-know-what. Like, it's so simple and so easy to understand. It is personal accountability. And Mahomes, he took the accountability factor in the game against the Packers. Hey, I got to, or especially in the game against the Eagles, I threw it too far in front of MVS. I got to put it on him. I got to be better there, But eventually, everything comes to a head.
Yeah, people talk about accountability. This is one of the most accountable teams in the NFL, week in and week out. So for it to not be that just shows you that you have a boiling point. You have a point where things bubble over. And it's a very human moment, because I think we've all been there. I think we've all been there where there's little thing after little thing after little thing that piles up, and then the next little thing feels like this big thing, and Mount Vesuvius erupts. Like we've all, I think, as humans, been in those moments. Fortunately, when we are in those moments, they are not broadcast live on the NFL Network.
It's not a good look for Patrick Mahomes, to me, for as a Chiefs fan. The one thing, though, is the national people will look at this, and it will have a black eye on Mahomes for yelling and screaming and going crazy on the officials. It will. I mean, there's no other way to play that, even though some people will say, yeah, you know what, they probably got a reason to be upset, but it's never a good look to blame officials. It isn't. From the text line, perhaps we're seeing the initial assessment some stated when Mahomes was drafted. He will leave as many plays on the field as he makes. We are seeing some of those errors. Also, I'd wish they'd stop trying to make him a pocket finesse passer. That era in football is over. To me, Mahomes has not been as good and placing the ball on the money, the deep ball, as he has in the past. And some of that is on Mahomes. But I don't know how you can get mad at Mahomes for what Toney did against the Detroit Lions, what MVS did against the Eagles, what what Tony did against the Bills yesterday. Rashee Rice fumbling the football, MVS fumbling the football, the offensive line.
Those guys have been so bad that now the standard for Mahomes is he has to be perfect.
Yeah,
and he's never been perfect. Like that's
why I think, he's leaving as many plays on the field as he makes. He's still making the play. It's that other people are flat out not doing it.
8% of passes he has thrown to wide receivers have been dropped this year. The most by a wide receiver core in the NFL by a full percentage point in the last decade. That's from Bill Barnwell of ESPN.
Yeah, just
like
the most ever. No team and no quarterback has his wide receivers dropped more passes than Patrick Mahomes this year in the last decade. And that's not including the turnover.
It's amazing when you look at that number that he didn't blow his stack for 13 weeks. That it took till week 14 for Mount Vesuvius to erupt.
I understand the desire to, someone's got to be blamed for things not being as good as we want them to be. Like, I understand that's how being a fan works. I know I feel that way. This is, like, objectively probably the worst season Mahomes has had. According to expected points added, success rate, expected completion percentage, things like that, Patrick Mahomes is still top 5, 5th or better in all of those categories across the NFL. He's throwing to bums. Like, this is a very, I told you, like 3 years ago, maybe, we were talking on the show, and you said, I can't believe people are turning on Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's such a good guy, and he's so fun to watch, and he's in all these commercials, and he's goofy. How can you hate this guy? And I told you on these two microphones, I said, Jake, welcome to having an elite quarterback. This is the cycle you go through. We have now hit is he actually bad because the players around him are bums? I might be the youngest one here. I have lived through this most of my life. I have been very blessed to live through this. Right now, honest question, and this is the worst question I'm ever going to ask you about the Chiefs. Which duo would you rather have right now on this team? MVS and Sky Moore, or Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle?
Oh, give me Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson.
Marcus Robinson got a touchdown yesterday.
That question was answered immediately. Yeah. Those two guys are barely 53-man players, and you would take them in a heartbeat over the guys the Chiefs have right now.
And what's wild is these are the same guys he had last year, and they won the Super Bowl, right? Like, unless we think maybe retroactively we should give Juju Smith-Schuster the 2022 NFL MVP. And maybe he was the one,
the best player in the league.
Yeah, apparently he was the one keeping this passing attack afloat. He's the only difference, right? Like they swapped him for Rashee Rice, and Rice has been great, and everybody else has taken such a step back. They have got a promising looking day 2 wide receiver guy. I think Rashee Rice can be a really good number 2 in this league for a really long time. They've got maybe they got the best tight end maybe of all time, having another terrific top of the charts year, best tight end in the league. And they've got 5 other guys that are 2 months away from being very, very fast Dick's Sporting Goods employees.
From the text line, they should know where the balls are at and know where the line of scrimmage is. And I'm a Chiefs fan.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true.
I'm with you.
We've got to vote for the duo of Albert Wilson and Dexter McCluster over the duo of Sky Moore and MVS.
Hey, look, Chiefs have been looking for a jet sweep guy. Dexter McCluster could do that.
Well, I was very wrong about Dexter McCluster as a pro. I thought he was going to be great.
The serious point, though, when you bring up Juju and was he the glue holding this team together, on a serious note, though, it again comes back to the evaluation part of this offseason. The Chiefs banked on Kadarius Toney can be, if not a true number 1 receiver, but a reliable go-to kind of weapon for this team. And that's what we were told. Not just by the Chiefs, but we heard that from Matt Derrick. We heard that from Jesse Newell. We heard that that's the kind of thing the Chiefs, heard it from Matt Verderame, who we'll talk to in a little bit. That's the kind of player the Chiefs think Toney can be. He got hurt the first day of training camp. It turns out the guy who has always been this is still this.
Yep.
And the fact that they relied on that and what you would have assumed was progression for more backfired on them. That's why I think we are here.
From the text line, I can't wait to listen to Matt tear the Chiefs apart. That was absolutely embarrassing how they acted after the game.
Honestly, me too. I I love hearing Matt tear people apart. I'm very excited for that.
I don't know. I think people are going too hard on Reed and Mahomes.
I personally don't care.
Like,
my opinion
those are human moments, like very human moments.
And their moment is still not throwing their teammates under the bus. So I'm going to let it out somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are going to be upset about it. This goes back to,
and if you were a fan and if they had gone to the podium yesterday and said, well, we just got to be better, we just got to do, we just got to keep focused on the little things, we just got to be better, the stuff they did after the Green Bay game, if you were a fan, you'd be mad at that too, because you'd want to hear, you'd want accountability to be turned on the players who made the mistakes. You're mad if you're a Chiefs fan at losing the game, which is totally justifiable.
From the text lines, it did not alter the play. Yes, he was offsides, but now you have the league discussing something that it shouldn't be talked about. Did it alter the play? No, it didn't. You're right, it did not. But here's the thing: you have to have a baseline somewhere. Otherwise, add another foot. And that's the thing. There are a lot of people who will say, "Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, was that offsides?" Yes. It goes back to the play in the Super Bowl. The hold on Juju Smith-Schuster by James Bradbury. Did that affect the play? Was Juju going to catch it? Probably not. But guess what? That's a hold. He grabbed him by the waist. However small a hold it was in the Super Bowl, that's a hold. In the NFL, he lined up. His entire foot is across the way. His entire foot is right in line with the football, whether you like it or not. And there's the video now of some fan, showing it, and it shows Kadarius Toney lineup. He does look that way, and he almost shoos the ref, yeah, I'm good, okay. I get it's so blatant that he's offsides right there. Even that grainy, terrible, iPhone video. I mean, if it was a Droid, it probably would have been better video, and we probably would have been able to get something.
How did you find a way to get that?
I don't know. It was pretty good, right? I just at some point in time you have to accept responsibility. It's like MBS was asked earlier this week in the press conference, hey, how do you feel about this year? About what? The drop pass on that. I don't know what you're talking about. That says a lot. There's your attention to detail. It ain't me, fam. That ain't me. So, there are ways to look at it. I look at it different than a lot of people. I really didn't. I'm always going to ride with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and if they're yelling and screaming at the officials, cool. Because guess what, folks? This is what the Chiefs are, the big bad. No one wants the Chiefs to win anymore. It went from fun, loving, never won anything. Look at this group of offensive guys to now, wow.
It's cheering when they lose.
Yeah, that's where we're at right now. And now you've got, now some people from the text line here, pretty simple. I actually like that they got upset and showed some emotion. I think they should be fired up to change things. You know what? People wanted Patrick Mahomes not to be a robot, right? He's so calculated and everything. He showed some emotion. I have no problem with that.
I will
really,
say,
really don't.
The most valuable bundler commercial hits different when you just were in a screaming match at a referee moments beforehand.
By the way, that is a great commercial. I'm the MVP. I'm the MVP.
I love that they kept the clip in of Andy Reid corpsing, just about to burst into laughter.
Yeah, he definitely broke in that cut, and they left it in.
MVP. Yeah. Coming up next, we'll recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Recapping the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. My good is that the Washburn women's soccer team made it all the way to the national title game. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. All sorts of folks that were at Lee Arena on Saturday were asking about the game or watching it, and that was really cool. So congrats to them. Congrats to Coach Phillips. Washburn, part of my good for the week. Washburn's men went 17 of 28 from 3 against Rogers State. They could not miss.
Do you think you could do that from the free throw line?
No, absolutely not.
I do. I think I could.
All right, we got Dan. Congratulations. We are now going to a gym and seeing if you can go 17 of 28. Do you think he can?
I don't know. I've never seen you shoot a free throw.
I got good form.
I'm very streaky. Like I'll hit 10 in a row and then I'll miss 9 of my next 10. I'm very streaky.
What's that percentage? 60%?
17 and 28?
Yeah.
Shoot. I should remember it. 61%. 60.7.
61%. I'd like to see. I know. Zero chance.
No, I couldn't. My other good, KJ Adams. We'll talk about him a little bit more in KU coming up. The win in the border war in the 4:00 hour, but just he's a star. He's kind of the Swiss Army knife player. There's nothing you point to and say, wow, he's just perfect at that. But man, he just does everything right. And that block in transition in the second half on Saturday, that's going to be played in the Allen Fieldhouse montage for a long time.
My good from the weekend, K-State basketball, blocking out the noise and winning big in Baton Rouge, withstanding LSU's big second half run. I think they held them to like 7 points in the final 10 minutes of the game. Cam Carter was terrific. Arthur Kaluma, Big 12 Player of the Week. And Naquan Tomlin got his diploma on Saturday, and that's a pretty awesome thing too. So that's my good from the weekend.
My bad for the weekend. There's a lot that you could go with when it comes the bad. But I'll go with the NFL officiating because it had nothing to do with the Tony offsides call. NFL officiating is the worst it's ever been.
Officiating everywhere is the worst it's ever been. There's no accountability, and you can get away with not doing your job or not doing it well anyway. Yeah, it's as bad everywhere as it's ever been. My bad. Mitchell Schwartz, former All-Pro right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Last night, just about 7 o'clock, he put on Twitter after responding to people and sharing his opinions on the end of the game, said, "I'm logging off. This fan base is officially too toxic." He proceeded to tweet 5 more paragraphs between then and the next 90 minutes. He absolutely could not log off. Mitchell, come on.
Look,
You're as
man,
online as the rest of us.
Very relatable.
Oh, it is, but you can't pretend to be better than the rest of the chaff and then stay online being just as toxic. You got to dive into it. Steer into the toxicity of the internet.
My bad is that we've had NFL games end 6-0 and 3-0 in the last 2 weeks. And the quality of play this year in the NFL is just so bad. It's just, it's a bad NFL year.
My ugly, I didn't get to discuss this on Friday, but it is President Linton releasing a statement that made no sense to me. And I still can't believe it to this day. The head coach of the basketball team did his job, right? Released a video, tried to calm everything down. And then President Linton's like, I got an idea. I'm going to release a statement that completely takes precedent over what the coach did. And at the end, he's like, I hope this helps. No, it didn't. In fact, you actually doused the smoldering fire that it was when Tang released his statement, and then you put gasoline all over it. I still can't believe it. Just, you hadn't said anything all week, and then you make the AD do it, and then you've got the coach does something, and then 24 hours later almost, you're like, I'm going to release a statement. That was so bad.
That was bad. I agree with you on that. My ugly. Dennis Gates, head coach of the Missouri Tigers.
I was wondering if you were going to bring this up.
So KU wins by 9. Didn't cover the spread. Had some issues. I mean, it's the same problems KU always has. Again, we'll get to that coming up in the 4:00 hour. But Missouri led for 14 minutes in the first half.
How many
of
teams?
The border war.
Brandon, how many teams do that?
Well, Jake, I'd love to tell you.
I want you to tell me, right? How many?
I don't know an exact number.
I want to know.
Well,
because
go
that's
to-
important. Because that counts.
You know who that's important for? Morons and losers like Dennis Gates. Yeah, I'm going to stick to that. Loser behavior, loser program. Literally the only Missouri-related person I feel bad for that they lost this weekend is Matt Derrick, because he's probably one of the like 3 nicest people I've met in my entire life. No, loser behavior. He said
Marco.
Emphatically. Yeah, Marco went to KU.
He's a Mizzou guy.
He went to KU. He's fine. Dennis Gates said that the 14 minutes Missouri led in the first half, they were an excellent 14 minutes. I'm proud of those 14 minutes. Quote, I'd like to see the next team that leads for 14 minutes in this arena. A football school that used to play in a high school gymnasium won a game by 23 in that gymnasium literally last year. Oklahoma State, which sucked. They blew chunks a year ago, led for like 35 minutes a year ago. Are you kidding me? Missouri fans like this guy?
Wind him up.
They like this guy? This dude is a fraud. He's going to be coaching Samford in 3 years. Give me a break.
All right. Unlike Brendan.
Oh, 14 minutes. Jeez, dude. Congrats on your moral victory. Hang a banner.
They got room up there.
Plenty of
They
it.
don't have to take down a national championship banner or anything to hang up the led for 14 minutes at Allen Fieldhouse once banner.
Even a Final Four banner.
I don't quite have the vitriol that you do towards Dennis Gates, Brendan.
Bum.
I actually have the opposite. I find it hilarious, and I find it funny that just goes to show you where their program is. They're at a moral victory program. So there you go.
Embarrassing.
I find it hilarious. Hey, guess what? We led for 14 minutes.
I'm not topping that. Let's go to break.
Coming up next, at Verderame, we'll talk all things Chiefs and NFL. Talking all things NFL with our NFL insider, Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated and SI.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Matt, what's your takeaway from everything that occurred yesterday at One Arrowhead Drive with the Chiefs and the Bills? What is your big takeaway?
That the Chiefs have a pretty obvious accountability problem at this point. I think what happened after that game is far worse than what happened during it. And what happened during it is predictable because they've done this all year long. They can't stop dropping passes. They can't stop taking penalties. They can't stop turning the ball over. In short, they can't stop beating themselves. And after the game, to have your quarterback essentially just whine incessantly at a press conference when, look, your receiver's offsides. It's not close. It's not borderline. You know, people have this misconception. They look at the blue line on television and they think, well, that's just the hard and fast. That's the line of scrimmage. Creed Humphrey, the ball was half a yard behind that line, and Tony was over the line. I mean, he's a good half yard in front of that football with the front of his foot and with the upper body, with the shoulder and the head. And yet Andy Reid's talking about the officials after the game. Patrick Mahomes, I have no problem in the sideline. It's heat of the moment. I get that. After the game, whining incessantly about the fact that it's a cool place which you count. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't count. You guys can't line up correctly, which has been a problem all year long, whether it's Kadarius Toney or Jawan Taylor or somebody else. And instead of taking the moment to be accountable and accept the fact that the call is coming from inside the house with this game, they continue to just look outward and blame everybody else. And by the way, and lastly, where's the accountability from Kadarius Toney? Where's he after the game? Where are any of those receivers after the game? I've covered 2 Chiefs games this year at Arrowhead for Sports Illustrated. None of them are available, save for Justin Watson once and Travis Kelce for 41 seconds one other time. Nobody's available. Nobody speaks. And at some point, you look at them and say, well, if you're going to have a loser's mentality, you're going to be a loser. And that's my takeaway from that football game.
Is it that Mahomes doesn't want to throw one of his teammates under the bus? Because a lot of people here locally were wondering, at what point in time will Mahomes actually say, you know what, Kadarius Toney, you know, Sky Moore, MBS, you know, and he's always said, you know, it's me, right? You know, the deep pass to MVS against the Eagles, you know, it hit MVS right in the hands, and you had Patrick Mahomes say, I threw it a little bit too far, right? You know, and then the game against the Packers, and we've talked about this a lot today, was that, you know, Patrick Mahomes said, I like it when the officials let us play a little bit. Is this the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes just finally saying, I got to yell and scream somehow, but I'm not going to throw my players under the bus still, so I'll just go the officials route?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some truth in that. I think that they have boiled over from 3 months worth of they can't execute. They can't do anything right on offense. But again, at the same point, like, I have no problem if Mahomes or Andy Reid, for that record, go up, or for the matter, go up there and say, hey, look, it's a really frustrating way to lose. You know, we have to stop beating ourselves. It's been a never-ending theme this year. We're top 5 in the league in turnovers. We lead the league in drops. Our offensive line takes more penalties than any other offensive line in football. Like, but to sit there after that game, and again, on the sideline, no problem. I get it. You're heated. You haven't seen the replay. Like, you're furious. I have no problem with Mahomes being absolutely irate. But after the game, and you've had a few minutes, God knows by that point, I'm sure he'd even seen the replay. Like, you need to be able to have some accountability. And again, this has been a year-long problem with the football team. That was a one-off. You'd be like, okay, fine. Now, Mahomes, it's a one-off. Mahomes has been nothing but a class guy his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel that way about him. He's always been a class guy. But at some point, I mean, you throw a horrible pick in the first quarter. Your receiver, who's been lining up as a receiver since Pop Warner, has no idea where he is on the field when he's lining up. You dropped a million more passes. I mean, at some point, would anybody blame them if they just called out their receivers? I mean, maybe that is the way to go.
Is there, I mean, it's the same song and dance all season long with the offense, right? Turnovers and penalties, drop passes.
Yep.
I don't. That's who they are. Like that. We're 13 weeks into the season. Is there any way that you think that they can improve upon that at all, or that's just the way it is this year?
I think it's going to be very, very hard for this team to win multiple playoff games. I just don't see. And yesterday changed that opinion for me because all year long I felt like, you know what? They are so good defensively. They have some great players on offense, obviously led by the quarterback. Like, you just kind of figure at some point here, they're just going to figure this out. And I do think to a degree, like they figured out some things. You look at the snap counts yesterday, MVS Sky Moore played way less snaps. Rice was out there 85% of the game. And he had a very good game, although it fumbled again, which is a problem for that entire team, and he included. So I do think some of this stuff has gotten ironed out in terms of figuring out who should be out there, what kind of plays they should run. The problem is just they have receivers who can't catch. I mean, even Rice, who's been excellent this year, I would give him an A+ grade this year for being a rookie in Andy Reid's system. He drops the ball. He fumbles. He's got a limited route tree. And they've got Kadarius Toney, who has all the talent in the world, but makes mental errors all the time. It's just something where I look at them and go, if they're going to make a run in the playoffs, and for the record, I think they're going to win out, by the way. I think they're going to win their last 4 games. I think they'll win the division. I think they might even be a 1 seed. I think they'll probably at least be a 2. But you'll look at them and just go, if any decent team goes to Arrowhead and plays them and doesn't make mistakes, the Chiefs are incredibly vulnerable. Maybe they win. They could win. But, man, in the playoffs, you got to string 3 or 4 of those together. And this team has shown no ability to do that.
We're chatting with Matt Verderame. He covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated and SI.com. He joins us every Monday at this time as we go around the NFL weekend that was. You can, again, find Matt's work over at SI.com, and you can go check him out on Twitter. At Matt Verderame is his handle there. Over in the NFC, Matt, you've got the Eagles who won the conference a year ago, and they're still 10-3, tied for the best record in the NFL. You've got the Cowboys who are also 10-3 and just whooped the Eagles last night. And then you've got the 49ers who are also playing as well as anyone in the league right now. So who is the best team in the NFC today?
Oh, I think you have to San Francisco. But Dallas has played in a way that you have to really take account of them. I mean, before the year, I picked them and the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl. And despite everything Kansas City's done, that actually still might happen. You look at Dallas, they're just talented all over the field, even without Diggs, even with him out for the season. They are loaded. They're deep. They're versatile. They can play a lot of different ways. They can beat you all kinds of styles, however you want to play them. I mean, the Niners, you got to give them credit. They played Dallas. No, look, it was basically a lifetime ago at this point. They played them earlier in the year. They absolutely destroyed them. The problem right now in Philadelphia, look, I am a big fan of the Eagles and their mentality and the way they play and how they build that team. The problem in Philadelphia at this point is just glaringly obvious. They can't stop anybody from throwing football. I mean, it's just, if they can't immediately get home and wreck your offensive line, they're cooked. The Bills threw all over them. The Niners threw all over them. Cowboys threw all over them. Hell, I covered that Chiefs-Eagles game. The Chiefs threw all over them. The Chiefs couldn't catch the ball. But it certainly wasn't a lack of guys being open. So the Eagles right now, look, the good news for them, schedule's really easy the rest of the way. Got Seattle, the Cardinals, and the Giants twice. But they've got problems. There's no two ways about it.
Is the MVP race down to Brock Purdy versus Dak Prescott at this point?
Dak should be the MVP. I'm not trying to take away from Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is in a golden situation, and he's played great. Like, he has taken advantage of that. But you watch a lot of Niners teams. I mean, guys are wide open 30 yards downfield. They have every ability to just scheme guys open. Dak, when you look at the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are really talented, but when you look at them offensively, I mean, it's CeeDee Lamb and what? Like, Brandon Cooks is a good player. Michael Gallup's a good player. Tony Pollard's a good player. It's not the 49ers personnel. It's not even close. Like, for me, Dak is asked to do a lot more on that football team than Brock Purdy's asked to do. And I think to this point in the year, for my money, he absolutely should be the MVP of the league.
We're speaking with our NFL insider, Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Matt covers the NFL for SI.com, Sports Illustrated, and you can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. You can hear him on this program every Monday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. The AFC wildcard race continues to get more muddled by the week. Cincinnati has pulled off back-to-back victories with Jake Browning completing 80% of his passes and moving the ball effectively down the field. Do the Bengals have some life, or is this a death rattle for Cincinnati?
No, I know. Look, you got to give Browning credit. Now, yesterday was a little bit interesting to watch that game. He had a couple of screen passes that went for I think it was 3 screens for 140 yards or something like that. So some of that was a little bit if you actually watch the game, you're like, okay, I mean, he played fine, but it wasn't crazy. I think he will come back down to earth here. I mean, the last 2 games are all the credit in the world, but some of this has been kind of circumstantial. The flip side is, though, they play Minnesota next. Minnesota is weird. Minnesota last year had a great offense, couldn't stop anybody. They're the polar opposite this year. So can Flores do enough to scheme problems for Cincinnati? That's a winnable game. Then they go to Pittsburgh. I think we've seen that any game against the Steelers right now is a winnable football game. And then they go to Arrowhead. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs because I think with all the tiebreakers they're going to lose, they're probably going to have to win out. And I don't think they're going to beat Kansas City. And I think they're probably going to finish 9-8. But they're playing hard. You know, you look at the team that's just fascinating is Buffalo because Buffalo 7-6. They're probably also going to have to win out. I mean, Cleveland at this point has 8 wins. They're going to get in. If Houston gets Stroud back, their schedule is not hard. They got Tennessee twice in the last 4 weeks. They'll probably get themselves 10 wins. And then you look at, okay, Denver. Denver's probably going to win 10 games. I mean, they're probably going to lose this week to the Lions. Got the Raiders. They've got the Chargers now at potentially Easton Stick. They have the Patriots at Mile High. Like, Buffalo's probably going to win out. They got Dallas this weekend, which is going to be a very, very interesting football game.
If the Bills do finish 8th in the AFC, can we start a petition right now to allow them to compete in the NFC playoffs instead of the winner of the NFC South?
Yeah, I mean, wrong conference, right? It's the NFC playoffs. I will say this, though. The Packers are interesting in the NFC if they get in. Like, I don't think they're going to go to the Super Bowl because they beat Detroit. Yeah, Detroit's a mess right now. Detroit's bad. That is really the thing this year more than anything else. You know, let's put San Francisco aside for a moment. And I'm even going to throw Dallas in this mix because I don't think anybody's convinced in the playoffs. Dallas is just a sure thing. Other than San Francisco, is there one team in the NFL you fully trust in a playoff game? Is there one? And even them, if they get behind in a game with Purdy, you could go, well, hey, listen, all of a sudden that changes everything about the 49ers. It is a year, and that's why I think, you know, to kind of go full circle with this, Kansas City, you'll look at them and you're like, yeah, it's probably just not going to happen. And then you look at who they'll probably have to play in the playoffs. You know, they're probably favored in every one of those games. I mean, maybe if they got to go to Baltimore, they're not a favorite. Maybe it's a pick 'em or Baltimore's -1. I mean, it's just a year. It's all going to come down to who gets hot, who's healthy, who plays good for a month. I mean, sometimes you go to the playoffs and you just go, all right, that team's just far and away better than anybody else. The Niners have a case for that. But the Niners are also a team that they've gotten smoked in a handful of games this year. And they've had problems when they get behind. So it's just a very, very interesting dynamic going down the stretch here.
There are a whole mess of teams right now at 7-6 in the AFC. Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Houston, and Denver. Cleveland at 8-5 is the top wildcard team right now. Other than Buffalo, who's probably the obvious answer to this question, out of that group, who is the easiest to make the case can have that hot month and maybe make a playoff run in the AFC?
None of them. I know that's a really lazy, bad answer. None of them. Like, they're not. None of those teams are doing it. Like, I mean, I guess if you pin me down to look, you got to pin $100 on it. I'd say Houston if Stroud's right. Like, just because he's played great. But you look at it and you're like, I don't know, man. I mean, as much as the Chiefs drive people nuts, as much as Baltimore has its own weaknesses, as much as you have questions about Miami, like, do you really see in a playoff game Denver going to Baltimore and beating that team? Like, does anybody really think Gardner Minshew's going to Arrowhead beating them? I mean, it's just, I know that all the AFC teams, they're flawed. But at the end of it, you still got to tell yourself, yeah, I think Joe Flacco is going to Arrowhead and beating Kansas City. Like, I don't think that's happening. If for no other reason, the one thing about Kansas City and Baltimore in particular, they're very good defensively. Like, if those teams score 20 points against Cleveland, it's over. That's it. They're going home. Like, if they score 20 points on Indy, they're probably going home. Pittsburgh, I don't know if Pittsburgh could score a point if they got in the playoffs. So, yeah, I mean, I think Buffalo clearly is the answer. Maybe the Bengals, just based off the fact if Browning continues to play like this, you could have an argument that, hey, they just had the playmakers, but I don't see it. I think in the AFC, it's going to come down to the Chiefs and the Ravens, maybe Miami, and then, we can revisit it if Buffalo gets the playoffs.
Matt, the last thing I got for you, does the NFL have an officiating problem, and does the NFL care about it?
Yeah, I think on both counts. I mean, yes, the NFL cares about it. I don't know if they care enough to do anything about it, but I think, they understand. Listen, gambling's legal in far more states now than it's not. And more money is being put on these games than ever before. And I'll tell you one thing, like, I don't love the look he got yesterday out of Mahomes, although I give the man overall a pass considering who he's been all these years. It puts a lot of pressure on the NFL, and I don't know how many people saw Myles Garrett was tearing into the officials after the game yesterday. Like, that kind of stuff, that's a problem for the NFL. Like, you do not need star players saying, hey, look, this is a train wreck, fix it. And so, yeah, I do think it's a problem. It's not been good. We also don't need, like we had on Sunday night, with John Hussey's throwing a flag like 8 times every play. Nobody needs this. Nobody wants to watch it. But I will say in that Chiefs-Bills game, that's a flag. 100 times out. And I don't care. The next Chiefs fan who sends me a screenshot of a game from 2018 where some guy has a toe over the blue line. They're like, see, it wasn't called this time. Yeah. If you go speeding down the freeway 100 times, you're not going to get pulled over 100 times, but you're going to get a ticket. And when you get that ticket, I don't want to hear you go, well, why did I get a ticket this time? Well, you were speeding. You got a ticket. You deserve the ticket. And that's what happened yesterday. But yes, the officiating overall, it's got to be better.
Matt, we appreciate the time. Have yourself a great rest of the week. We appreciate it.
Hey, take care, guys.
That is Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated.
Matt didn't have to call me out there. He didn't have to go after me particularly with that last point.
On. That's what I love about Matt. Like he
tells it like it is.
He tells it like
I'm going to
it
be thinking about that answer to Dan's question for the rest of the day. That was really funny.
He's so spot on. It's kind of like an old school where when they're at the debate and was it
Will Ferrell's character blacks out?
No, the MC guy, James Carville.
Yes,
James Carville's like,
I have no response. That was perfect.
Like Matt, that was perfect.
Speaking of Will Ferrell, Talladega Nights was on TV the other night. What a movie! What a great film!
All timer.
That movie's ridiculous.
It's so good.
Coming up, we got a lot more. We got What Is Wrong With You, and we'll hear from Big Red. number 3, 580 Sports Talk, coming to you on this Monday. Thank you so much for stopping by. Jake LeBon, Brandon Dworzynski, Dan Lucero with you. The text line has been active, and we appreciate it. We do. We want to know your thoughts. Are we feeling the same as you are? Let us know. Hit us up, 785-272-9429.
React to us, Chiefs Kingdom.
Text us. You can also go to our YouTube page, youtube.com. Go to search 580 Sports Talk. Real simple, real easy. We did get a see. This is good because if you can't laugh, then you're gonna cry, right? This is hilarious. If you look at the text line, guys, someone sends in a text that has the image of Kadarius Toney obviously lining up on the 49-yard line. His foot is on the 49-yard line. The ball is between the 49 and the 50. That's offsides. And you got the jokers on True TV say, now line up offsides on the game-winning play. And they're standing there, and then they see Kadarius Toney doing it, and they're laughing. It's the meme. Have you guys seen this at all?
The Impractical Jokers, yeah.
It's hysterical.
Yeah, now that I get it. I'm not familiar with the work of the Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
Have you never seen it?
No, I've never watched the show.
Oh,
no, I've seen the commercials during the NCAA tournament, like the weekend they show games on True TV, but I am not a active watcher.
So
you've never dozed off during the last tip-off, woken up to another marathon of it and said, this is the channel I was on last night.
I feel like I only ever wake up to like world's slowest police chases or something on that channel.
I've seen it because, they'll be like, you have to do something and it's in their ear. That's so ridiculous. And they do it. And then they just laugh at them. And
that's a good meme. Now that I get it, I think that is very funny. Yeah.
So funny. Well done, text line. Let us know your thoughts from the text line. I love that show. No, that was well done. Sometimes, and I, as the resident Chief fan of this show, I still look at the Chiefs as we are a postseason team now. Can you get it done in the postseason? It's the regular season is a means to an end. Can you figure it out? And if they get the 2 seed, right? They own the tiebreaker with the Dolphins. Now, you got to have the Dolphins lose a couple games. When I say a couple, I mean they're gonna have to lose 2 games. 2 games?
Yeah.
1 game.
Them and the Ravens are both 2 wins ahead. I guess it's a game and a half for Miami because they play tonight.
Yeah, they play tonight. And they're gonna beat the Titans tonight. They play the Dolphins, play the Jets. Dang, they play the Cowboys and the Ravens and the Bills. I mean, that's doable. They could get the 2 seed. Either way, what do you do in the playoffs? Like, maybe they pull it together in the playoffs. Like that is for me.
No, I totally understand that. And I think I have largely felt the same way in previous years, but previous years, the regular season also didn't look like this.
That's true.
Like, the Chiefs weren't.
But then 2021 is the closest analog, right? They had the really rough stretch in the middle of the year where the offense couldn't get right. They had the game where they got punked by the Titans, lost that 27-3. They barely beat the Jordan Love-led Packers. Like, it did not look good. They were 3-4, I think, at one point in that season. So that's the only other one. The reason that this one stands apart from that is because if you're struggling in September and October, you got a longer runway to get things figured out before you got to take off. You're approaching the end of the runway here. Like, you're running low on mulligans in December.
So we'll see.
Doesn't mean you don't have another couple left, but you're running out. You've about spent them all.
The Chiefs will win games if they just don't turn it over. But right now they do. They turn it over every single game. It's pretty simple. Let's get to a little bit of hoops action. I'll start with K-State because they played LSU, and Cam Carter might be a dude.
Yeah, I mean, right now he is your leader in the clubhouse or Big 12 most improved player, and I don't think it's really a discussion.
He's a dude.
Yeah.
Cam Carter, I did not expect this from Cam Carter this year. And I don't know how many people did outside of maybe Cam Carter or outside of Jerome Tang, maybe a couple assistant coaches.
There were some glimpses last year. You could see like the athleticism. You could see the willingness to take some big shots. Like he had some big shots in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I'm not saying like I never like he did. He played well, but you didn't see to me this upcoming year the consistency of it. I didn't see 21 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 16 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, 14 points, 19 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, 28, 5 and 5. I mean, 25. I didn't see that coming from Cam Carter this year on any level of this consistency for the Kansas City Chiefs. I really
For the Kansas State Wildcats.
The Kansas State Wildcats.
We'll get back to the Chiefs, we promise.
It's kudos to him, and he's doing it while not shooting the three that great.
He's a bucket getter.
That's
like
he's fun to watch.
Yes,
too. He is.
He can score around the rim. He can finish creatively. His ability to get a bucket one-on-one. You have to have a guy like that. Flat out. You have to have guys. Jerome Tang would call them dudes.
Yep.
Who can win their one-on-one matchup and get you a hoop. You can't scheme the ball into the basket for 40 minutes. You have to be able to get a bucket. And Cam Carter is a bucket getter, and Arthur Kaluma, the way that he's played.
He had the light bulb moment with K-State. I think he did.
He had a bad first impression because he went 1 for 10 in the USC game. He didn't play well on either end of the floor. But he had a couple of moments in the LSU game down the stretch when the game got tight, like K-State was rolling, and then LSU made the big run. They got within 3. In the final 10 minutes of that game, there were a couple of plays. One of them was a 3 on the wing, contested 3 they knocked down. The other was got the ball on the right elbow, backed his man down, then hit a little turnaround jumper. Like, that looked like Keontae Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
That looked like the guy who he was brought here to essentially replace. And now he's starting to play like him in terms of being that level of scorer. And I think he's probably already a better defender just because of his length than Keontae was last year. So that's big. That's big that they're getting that level of production from Kaluma, that Carter's taken the leap. They're not a particularly deep team right this second. They miss Questlove, and obviously they're going to be short a post all year because Naquan Tomlin's not coming back. But that starting 5 is playing really well, and they feel like they're getting better at playing as a team, game in, game out. That was a really impressive performance Saturday. I was in every facet. I was really impressed.
You've got Kaluma has gone for 20, 20, 12, 26, 17, Big 12 player of the week. K-State playing well. Good stuff from Kansas State.
The thing for Kaluma is I think he's a really good player. I think he's playing really well. He deserved player of the week and all of that. And he's been consistent. I mean, that's double figures in every game since the second game of the year. He's got, 3 20-point games in the last 5. Like, he's been really good. The problem at Creighton was never that he didn't have the talent or the skill or any of that. It was the get your head out of your ass moments. It was like the, hey, pay attention to what's going on the court around you moments. I mean, we saw it in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. We saw it at times last year with that really good Creighton team. I mean, there were moments when he was the best player on the court. There were also, like, for lack of a better phrase, since it's kind of the theme of the day, he had his Kadarius Toney moments. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, dumb turnovers, surprisingly bad shot selection. So if we get to Big 12 play and it is, every game he's scoring 16 and a half, 17 points, then yeah, I think the K-State staff found a way to get him to that next level. Honestly, the comparison is Tyler Perry and Marquise Noel, because they're both small, they're both point guards, they both love to shoot the 3. I think that's a comparison a lot of players have brought, like, oh, that's our new Marquise Noel, right? The better comparison in terms of style of play and trying to rein in recklessness is actually Arthur Kaluma to Marquise Noel. Because Noel, I mean, we heard the analogy even from Jerome Tang last year. Like, Marquise Noel's a train, and sometimes the train gets a little wobbly on the tracks. You can keep him on the track, though. You're going to get exactly where you want. I think that's like word for word what Jerome Tang said at one point. Kaluma's the same way. If you can get him focused and playing to this level game in, game out, he's going to be first team all Big 12. The key is just to get him there. And if the staff can accomplish that, it's a huge, huge credit to them.
And they finally got a game where all of them played well offensively kind of at the same time. That was nice to see. 17 for Kaluma, 21 for Carter, 14 for Tyler Perry. This is good stuff. Good win for they're stacking wins. That's the main thing. KU took on the Missouri Tigers. It was an absolutely dreadful start for the Kansas Jayhawks. I don't know what happened there because the building, as they say, was juiced. They were ready to go. Missouri comes to town, and KU looked like they forgot how to play basketball for a little bit. But then KU decides to come back and take care of business. The best part about this entire game has nothing to do with the offensive side of things. It's the sheer fact that you put the clamps down on Missouri for about 30 minutes. Like, they scored 64 points after starting out taking care of business. KU, this was one of their better defensive games that KU played, I thought, because Missouri started out they started out well. I mean, it was like, whoa, what is happening right now? KU came back, took care of business. KJ Adams is really good.
Yep.
He and I'll take the L on this one. I was like, I don't really know what KJ Adams is going to do. You know, where's he going to play? What's he going to do? He's just going to play basketball.
He's going to just do everything.
He's
whatever they need him to do at the given time.
He's going to find a way to make it work. Like, he had 5 assists in the game. Like, what is that from KJ Adams? Like, he has played a perfect role for the Kansas Jacks. He really, really has. He doesn't need to be a go-to scorer, but get open when Dickinson finds you. Like, Dickinson will find you. I mean, that's pretty simple. Or, you know, it'll be Harris, or move without the basketball. Just do something to benefit the team, right? And he's doing that so well.
And if they're not going to guard you, and for the better part of that game, it looked like Mizzou's game plan was, we are absolutely not going to let Hunter Dickinson go nuts on us. And if that means KJ Adams is open, that means KJ Adams is open. You know, make enough 12-footers to keep the defense honest.
How about that? KU won a game from the free throw line, too. How about that? That was kind of nice. You ready for this? You know how I say the Kansas City Chiefs are who they are? I think we're not there yet, right? But, you know, 5 or 6 more games down the road, when they've played almost half their regular season games, I think we can. KU is just not going to shoot the three. They are who they are.
I could have told you that in September.
Well, I wanted to give a few more games, because, and I've said this, if this team makes the three, they're unbeatable. They're unbeatable. Because they are going to play great defense. They're going to be a nightmare matchup. And
they're going to be super efficient inside the arc.
Exactly. They went 3 of 10. They shot 10 threes in that game. That's incredible in this era. It's almost as if like they're a 2015 Royals, where they're juking when everybody's jiving, and they're bobbing when everybody's weaving. Like, it's incredible that they went 3 of 10. 9 points came from the 3-point line. If they go like 6 of 15 in a game, like, you're not going to beat them. Like, or if they shoot 50% from 3-1 game, where they're like 7 of 14, you're not going to beat them. Like, that's like the peak. But this is what they do. Like, so what if they're not shooting the 3? Well, okay, they'll win. Like, that. This is what they're gonna like. The only hope is if Furphy all of a sudden starts shooting the 3 better, because I don't think Nick Timberlake is gonna do it. I think Furphy's got the best chance of doing it, but they can't get in foul trouble. They can't have anybody get hurt, and if that occurs, KU's gonna be crazy good.
Yeah, and KU does
good.
Probably end up covering the spread in that game on Saturday if Furphy had been able to play more. He had a stretch of 2 fouls in 2 seconds at one point in the second half, and then picked up his third moments later. Didn't score, only played 8 minutes total. I'm maybe not the best matchup for him, but at the very least, you have to get him on the floor so that you can get DeJuan Harris a break for 2 minutes, and then get McCullough a break for 2 minutes, and then you get KJ a break for 2 minutes, and then you can cycle them back out. Like, you've got to be able to get those guys a break. Like, right now, DeJuan Harris already has 3 games this year with 4 turnovers, and KU has not gotten to the hardest part of the schedule yet. Like, he had 6 of those games, all told, all of last season.
KU got a little bit of a turnover problem. I think they were a little juiced up early on.
Well, I think it's the fact that none of these guys get a break.
That might
McCullough and Harris have to play 36 minutes a game.
And this is where, do you go with the question for Bill Self is, do you need to sacrifice some stuff here so that come March they're ready to play. That's always been a question for Bill Self.
See, I think it's the inverse this year, though. I don't think there's any concern about this team being ready to play in March. I think they're ready. I think if you started the
So if that's the case, then
maybe the question is, do they need to sacrifice some things and play Furphy and Timberlake and
more?
Like, do you play them more? Who they got Indiana next, right? Or do they have
Indiana?
They don't play anybody this week. This finals week, everybody's off. They got Indiana next. Indiana's not particularly good, but they could certainly lose that game at Assembly Hall. Like, do you not worry about it so much and say, hey, we're going to play Nick Timberlake 15 minutes. We're going to pull the reins on McCullers minutes. We're going to pull the reins on Harris's minutes. We lose this game, who cares? But we got to get these guys ready for Big 12 play, because the goal is to win a Big 12 championship in addition to winning a national championship.
I think I totally see what you're saying. I think the issue is they tried that against Eastern Illinois and UMKC, and it didn't work. They were up by 8 with under 4 to play in each of those games.
That's what I say. You got to risk it, maybe.
Against Kansas City, Timberlake did play almost 15 minutes, and he was getting played off the floor. That's the big concern, is they just don't have a 7th guy.
No.
They've got 6. They've got 6 you can trust. Even though Marco Jackson makes some mistakes, even though Furphy is still coming along, you can trust those 6 guys are going to be your best 6, and they can go up against anyone in the country. The problem is, what if there's foul trouble in a Big 12 game?
Yeah, foul trouble and injury is the biggest issue.
What if someone gets hurt?
For the Royals,
exactly.
For the Jayhawks. We'll get a timeout.
Just cycle through all the teams we cover. It's fine.
Yeah.
You'll get there eventually.
Maybe we'll talk some Royals coming up tomorrow. We might.
Might have signed a starting pitcher by tomorrow. Who knows?
Maybe. Instead of actually just being like, we're talking to a few of them. Coming up next, we got What Is Wrong With You, and then we'll hear from Andy Reid.
We've got a new week in What Is Wrong With You coming up right now here on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan with you the rest of the way. 2 new stories going head-to-head, but first a reminder that What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by our good friends at Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications, which saves you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal with Top City Metal Supply. You can find them on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field, right here in the capital city of Kansas. 2 new stories to get to today. I will go first, and we are going down to North Fort Myers, Florida, where a Florida woman has found herself behind bars after she threw cinder blocks at a man in his car after she rear-ended him at a Publix. 54-year-old Patricia Mamani was arrested and charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and hit and run after an incident that unfolded shortly before 9 p.m. Saturday in North Fort Myers. A man called 911 after a woman backed her car into his in the parking lot. The woman, who was later identified as Mamani, fled the scene, but the man followed her while on the phone with police dispatch. His pursuit led them to a residential area where they both got out of their cars. Mamani grabbed 3 cinder blocks from a driveway and began to throw them at the man. One of them even hit him in the shin. Shortly after, the woman got back in her car in an attempt to flee the scene again, but the man grabbed 2 of the cinder blocks and placed them under her front tires so she couldn't leave. Mamani then decided to get out on foot, fleeing while wearing high heels. The man told deputies he did not know who Mamani was and had not had any previous interactions with her. The man was able to ID her, though, from a 6-person photo lineup, and deputies eventually caught up with her after learning of a possible location where she was located. Deputies arrived at the address and were met by a man who said Mamani was inside sleeping. He then told the deputies that Mamani, quote, arrived at his residence appearing to be in distress and stated that she was running from someone and needed a place to stay. Her relationship with the man was not made clear. Mamani eventually appeared wearing the same dress she had been reported to have been wearing earlier in the day. She was also, quote, extremely intoxicated. She was taken into custody and was evaluated by the Lee County EMS, was also medically cleared at a local hospital since she was involved in a crash and was clearly drunk. As far as the hit and run from the Publix parking lot goes, deputies say damage to both cars was consistent with the victim's account. Mamani's car was towed from the scene, and she was released from jail after posting $20,000 bond.
Hey, if she fled on foot in high heels while drunk, that's kind of an impressive athletic feat.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I can't even imagine making a run for it on high heels, stone sober.
Yeah.
So her ability to do it drunk is impressive in its own way.
I do love the thought that he put cinder blocks in front of her car and she just was so drunk she forgot that reverse was a thing.
Oh, no. I can't go forward. Whatever will I do?
My car only goes in one direction.
Looks like it might have lifted the car. Like they got pictures of the cinder blocks up under the front of the car there.
Yeah.
Might have even lifted the car a little bit.
A little bit of a lowrider.
She got the car up onto the cinder blocks and couldn't get it off. Yeah.
I'm stuck.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah. That's tough.
I guess I kind of understand like though why she might have like panicked. A, drunk, but B, like somebody follows you.
You're not feeling great, but by the same token, don't hit and run.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, if I were involved in a hit and run, I'd just get the license plate info if you can, and then kind of leave it to the police.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be all this. I don't think anybody covered themselves in glory here.
No, not a great scene, but especially not for the woman who had to pay $20,000 in bond.
No, that's tough. All right, we're going to Richmond Heights, Missouri, where we meet 33-year-old Philip Person, definitely a real name, not a fake name you would give the cops if you were trying to hide your identity.
Oh, what was the guy's name? Was it Scott Player, who was the punter?
Yes.
I always just loved seeing a dude whose last name was Player on the back of a jersey.
Right.
Looked so fake.
Anyway, Philip Person being charged with felony assault and weapons charges in St. Louis County. Police responded to a Panda Express in Richmond Heights, which is a suburb of St. Louis, around 4 p.m. last Wednesday. An officer said they found a man who works at the restaurant stabbed in the back.
Ew.
Witnesses told police Person got in an argument with employees over the quality of his food. He proceeded then to punch a female employee in the head.
Oh, no.
The restaurant's manager and a male employee were able to get person outside where he is accused of stabbing the male employee. Male employee was taken to a hospital for treatment, later released. Officers stopped and arrested person after he drove off in a work truck. Investigators said they also took a knife into evidence. Was it one of those like plastic joints that they give you for your orange chicken? Well, I generally enjoy Panda Express. I've been known to chow down on the orange chicken and the chow mein or the lo mein. They got decent crab rangoon. Prices aren't outrageous. Panda Express never done me wrong, but I understand that at a given fast food location, quality may vary. Like, sometimes you go to a burger joint and the fries are salty and fresh, and sometimes you go and you get the bad batch and they're a little cold.
Yeah.
And they're not as salty as you want. Like, it's the risk you run. It's fast food, is what it is. Sometimes it just doesn't hit like you'd like it to hit. Everybody has bad days. It's a bit of an overreaction to go this hard because, I don't know, Beijing beef was a little chewy or, wasn't much flavor to the fried rice. They were out of teriyaki sauce packets. Who can say? I just know it's not worth stabbing somebody over.
Yeah. I've eaten a good amount of fast food in my life. I have been known to nibble on some fast food. Many good meals, a handful of pretty bad ones too. I never thought I'm going to stab someone over this. I like to try to put myself in the position of a lot of these stories and say, okay, sure, this bad thing happened. I probably would have panicked too. I never would have done this.
No.
There's no way I would have stabbed someone over my Panda Express.
Such an escalation. Such an escalation over, man, my fried rice was a little too crispy, or I did not like the vegetables, or the honey walnut shrimp. You didn't give me big enough portion. Or...
All right, are we going with this one today then, since it's the sober story?
Yeah, somebody got stabbed in the back over bad Chinese food.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
Also, I'm on the other side of the spectrum here. I'm not a big Panda Express guy. I'm just not. I prefer my Chinese food, local from like a real dingy place in town that like might not have a sign and has like one person working there. That's the kind of Chinese food I prefer.
Don't get me wrong. I also love the Chinese food from places like that as well.
But like, you know what you're getting with fast food sometimes. Like you are running the risk every time you go into a fast food establishment. That is part of the experience.
I really miss Hunam. That was my go-to around here for a long time.
Shout out to my good friends at Jade Garden in Lawrence. All right. We picking that one today?
Yeah. The Panda Express stabbing. Yes.
It's a great name.
It really is.
The Panda Express stabbing that wins today in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply, located on South Topeka Boulevard, in between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field, right here in the capital city. Coming up on the other side of this break, it was a busy day for Andy Reid talking to reporters, not at the podium, just over Zoom. But we're going to hear what Big Red had to say earlier today. Coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. 4:38 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you today. Thanks so much for spending some of your afternoon hours with us. We'll get to more news and notes from the NFL weekend coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Also a busy day of 580 Sports Talk headlines. A lot of transfer news on the football front. One K-State star heading to the portal. One former K-State player has found a new home. A Topeka native is going to end up at KU, and the Jayhawks lost a role player today to the portal as well. So we'll get to that. Some actual Royals buzz. We've turned on a couple of burners on the stove now. We've got multiple pots ready to boil.
Yeah,
here
we're above simmer now,
and I think getting close to like actual, real big Royals news for the first time in 5 years. Like when is the last time there was a legit like, whoa, the Royals kind of story? Like I guess sort of Chapman last year, but Chapman was coming off of an awful season. Like that was an obvious reclamation project. More
of a name than like, oh wow, look at this big move they've made to upgrade the team. I kind of got psyched when they signed Carlos Santana, but he didn't end up doing much. The Benintendi trade was interesting.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Like as far as like making meaningful upgrades to the major league roster, because any like starting pitcher with a pulse is a meaningful upgrade to what they ran out there for the better part of 2023. If they're able to bring in one of the best veterans on the market on a deal, that would qualify as kind of a big deal. Yeah.
So we'll get to that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. We're still taking your texts, 785-272-9429, and your comments on the YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is where you can find us on YouTube. Andy Reid spoke to reporters earlier on today about a whole litany of things, including his beef with the officials last night. So without further ado, let's hear from Big Red speaking earlier today.
We're getting better in some spots, but we've got to clean up some things with the penalties and drops. And so offensively, and then obviously the scores early on the defensive side, we've got to take care of that. So, you know, we're not playing from behind there. So, but some of that also was turnovers on the offensive side, and that added up to it. So with that, I know what I said about the officials yesterday, or insinuated about the officials. Listen, there are no excuses on this thing. That's not what I'm saying. And I've always had a good working relationship with these guys, and that's the important part. So they know when they tell me something with a guy that I'm gonna go address the guy like right now, and make sure that it gets changed. When you're talking about inches, you know, those type of things, and those happen in the game. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, so this isn't an excuse or a blame on the officials for blowing the game. That's not what it is, but it's that working relationship. That part is so important in this thing. And so, because you see it on both sides, you know, whether it's a defensive end lining up in the neutral zone at times, or that just you give the head coach a heads up, and then in our case, we tell them, and then if they get called, listen, that's you know, you were warned, and so that's how it's worked over the years. That's what I was really trying to get across, and I take a lot of pride in taking what the officials give me and going to our players and telling them, like immediately telling them and giving them that and telling them that, hey, listen, they're giving you a warning. If you don't do it, that's on your plate. And that's the important part that I was trying to get across, but probably not very well after the game. So anyways, with that, we've got to do better just all the way around. And that's what we're striving for. But at the same time, we're getting better, and it's so close. It's crazy. So, and I think the guys they understand what we've got to get done. So, with that, time's yours.
Brett, I have a quick thing just after this, but Coach, it did seem like you had some positive signs. That final sequence aside, 340 plus yards on the ground. What specifically offensively from this game, do you feel like maybe you broke through in a sense and could build on as you go here?
Yeah, listen, Pete, I thought we had a good blend of things going. That's what I thought. Of the run, the screen, the quick screens, the pass. We were presenting a lot out there for a defense to have to defend, and we were doing that with accuracy for the most part. There are a couple that we've got to work on. That's you come out of every game like that, but we had a lot of yards, and that was a positive thing. And I thought the guys came out with the right intent. They were playing their tail off, aggressive, hard football, both sides of the ball, and on special teams. So we've got to clean up some of these self-destructive things, and whether it's the penalties, whether it's the drops, whether it's the turnovers. We got to clean that up, and we'll be okay. And we have to be consistent with that.
And then just the housekeeping category, your expectations for Justin Ross and his reintegration potentially this week.
Yeah, we'll just see kind of where he's at. Let's physically, and it's hard to be gone that long and just kind of jump right back in. So we'll just have to see where he's at.
Hey, Andy, regardless of whether that penalty on Kadarius Toney should have been called or not, I think you'd probably agree after looking at it, he was offside. So what's your coaching message to him today or Wednesday, whenever you see him next? And Brad will have a second question as well.
Yeah, so listen, normally he looks over to the sideline and just gets an okay. And on that one, he just happened not to. So that would be the coaching point. Just make sure you check. Make sure you check with the guy on the side just to see if you're aligned. I mean, he's not lining up off sides on purpose. And listen, he was 2 inches away from or an inch from being legal. And so I mean, you can always, like I said, you can argue both sides of it. It's for both teams. There are things that happen where people. Just it happens like that. So I guess the league's trying to clean that up from what I heard by one of the broadcasters last night. So I don't, whatever.
Okay. And that's not the first mistake he's made, obviously, that's been a big point in a game that's really cost you guys this year. Are you anywhere close to maybe getting to a point with him where maybe you feel like he needs a little more development, a little more coaching before he gets more playing time? Are you anywhere near that point at all with him?
Well, the thing I know, Adam, is he makes plays. He makes plays when he has the ball in his hand, and that's the important part. He's a young guy. I mean, he's not coming to us with a ton of experience. So, but I think he's getting better every week. This is one of those things, Adam, that, but I don't see that as being a negative. I look at the things that he produced on too. So.
Hey, Andy, just wanted to follow up on something you just said as far as you heard on the broadcast that this was something they're emphasizing. Have you heard in any other avenues that this was going to be a point of emphasis at all?
Well, I guess maybe they mentioned it to us probably somewhere. If this was one of the officials saying it on the broadcast, so it was I'm sure that they probably mentioned it somewhere.
But it's not something that you've gone over with your team because it's been some. I know you guys get stuff in training camp that
the officials come to give us everything, so that's everything's been covered, Sam.
Coach Pat obviously was quite upset on the sideline and was having to be held back. And I know he's frustrated. I know everybody on your organization is frustrated about the call. But how much of that do you think is this is the third game where really a receivers, whether it's a drop or at the end of the game or a penalty or a collection of drops, has really ended up maybe costing you a win? How much of that do you think is frustration maybe with the fact that you guys haven't got over that hump and maybe some guys have let him down? Do you see any of that creeping into why he was so frustrated in that game?
Yeah, I think what he said was pretty accurate. You know, and you know this, Sarim, but we put so much time and effort into it, and both physical and mental effort, and for it to come down to something like that, that ends up being the frustration. It's not what happened before, or that, but you know kind of what you've heard before, and you put that in the memory bank on you know, again, how things are normally handled. So when something changes like that in that type of a situation, it's two great, you know, really good football teams playing each other, and you're down to a minute and a half or minute 50 seconds. All of a sudden, you're right there and have a big play. I mean, I think anybody would say that that's a little bit frustrating. You know, you just spent a whole week in preparation for an hour game. You just put hours into this thing for it to come down to that inch. Well, do we need to line up right? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. I mean, we've got to take care of that and not put it in the officials' hands. With that part, we have to do. So, but the frustration comes in with the other part that, you know, you spend so much time doing that thing. So, but I don't see it as a thing that's happened in the past and this or that. But I mean, it's happened the last couple of weeks, but it's one of those things. So I don't think that's where the frustration was at that time, though.
Andy, I kind of piggybacking off what Sarin had to say. This isn't a locker room that's dealt with a lot of losses, right? I mean, and you're sitting here, if you lost 4 of 6, you guys are used to closing the season strong, right? So what is the sense of the locker room and how together the guys are? And do you feel like you got 4 more games that you guys can kind of find your stride with looking toward the playoffs still?
Yeah, it's week to week in the league. I think our players understand that. I mean, they're together. If that's what you're asking, they know what they need to do, and we've just got to get it done. We know we're playing a good opponent this week. We talked about that after the game, and so they know that they've got to be focused in and ready to go. But in this league, it's a matter of getting those things straightened out, and when you do, and you're in a good position health wise, you get up and you go, and so that's how I think they're thinking.
Andy, you've been a coach that's been known for really emphasizing details and being detail oriented. I have 2 questions for you, Coach. Just how surprising or concerning is it that it's 14 weeks into the season and minor details are the reason you guys have struggled at times? And what do you feel like you need to re-emphasize to get guys to be better with the attention to detail necessary to win close games?
Yeah, well, we got to take care of that business there of the penalties and the detailed things, and so it's not it's getting done 90% of the time, but you got to keep it right the whole time at this level, and so that's what we're working on. And I get paid to teach, so that's what I'm going to continue to teach. The players are going to continue to work, and then we got to get ourselves ready to go up and play, in New England.
Hey, Andy. Obviously, you've got a history of great relationships with officials, and you respect the game the way you do. So it was unusual for you last night to do that. Did you feel you needed to send a message to the team by speaking out like that, or was there something important you needed to get across, or was it just the emotion of the moment?
No, I was just speaking what I thought was the truth. And my intention was, I've been doing this a long time. I think I've got a good relationship with the officials, and I had no communication. That's all. I mean, that's really where I was coming from. I was disappointed in that part. And so, I know, again, how much time and effort goes into it. I know how much I've got to sit in front of the media. I know how much our players have to sit in front of the media and answer these questions. And we try to make it the right way, try to do it the right way. So, that's all I just, that's where I was with it. And, I was just speaking what I thought was the truth.
So that's Andy Reid, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, speaking earlier today. And I mean, he did everything he could to hit on all the big talking points from the end of the game yesterday that, hey, that's what I thought was the truth. So that's what I was saying. But I'm not calling him a liar. I'm not calling Patrick Mahomes a liar or any of that, because I know Mahomes was on a radio station in Kansas City today and said, yeah, I had some regrets about how I acted at the end of the game. But look, what would you rather do in that situation if you're reading Mahomes? Would you rather take it out on the officials when, yeah, you're going to have to end up paying a fine, but nothing is going to happen in the locker room? Or are you going to publicly rip Kadarius Toney for not paying attention, or for Sky Moore for not running the right route, or MVS dropping a pass, or whatever it is? Like, sucks. You're going to lose $25K, but that's kind of what you have to do sometimes.
If that call had happened in like the Philadelphia game, let's say the Chiefs are where they're at, and this is how the Philadelphia game ended, like a month ago, I don't think Reid and Mahomes react the way they do. I don't think that it's the talking point that it has become. I just think it's an accumulation of smaller frustrations that have built up throughout this season. The offense isn't gaining traction. The wide receivers aren't making plays. The mental mistakes, the physical mistakes, they keep getting made. And these games that the Chiefs have, over the last half decade, found ways to win way more often than not.
Yep.
They're not winning these games. And I think yesterday was just the boil over point for a season's worth of frustration. Now, you can do one of two things from here. If you're the Chiefs, you can let that frustration continue to mount, continue to boil over, or you can put it behind you and focus on the final 4 games of this regular season. And if anything, maybe it's a good thing that it boiled over when it did, and that it boiled over as much as it did, because now it's easy to look back the day after and say, all right, yeah, we lost it a little bit there. Now we got to regroup. And that's what this team has to do. And that's what they've done. They've done this so well for years. Been accountable, regrouped. When they've taken a punch to the chin, they've gotten up and punched back. We'll see if this team has that in them. There's a lot of things that past Chiefs teams have had in them that this team has not appeared to. But we'll see if they have that resiliency in them here over the final month of the season.
We've got to get to a break for the news, both local and national. When we come back, we'll have today's 580 Sports Talk headlines, a lot from the transfer portal world, and a wild baseball headline that just broke. We'll get to all that and more coming up in the final hour of 580 Sports Talk. final hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Monday, December 11th. I'm Brendan Dorzinski. That's Dan Lucero. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today on this first day of the work week. Make sure you are checking out our YouTube stream. We appreciate you listening on the radio or listening online at our website, 580wibw.com as well. But if you want to go check us out on YouTube, you were able to do so. The name of our channel is 580 Sports Talk. It's where you can find the live video stream of the show every single day. It's where you can also find our comment section. You can let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about today right there, along with the text line. And you can also go and, you can subscribe and check out all of our other videos, like our Chiefs Instant Reaction show from just last night. Dan and I broke down the Chiefs game as soon as it went final against the Bills. We just passed the 400 subscriber mark this weekend, 401 now, so appreciate you and all of your friends and everyone you know for subscribing to our YouTube channel. We'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in just a moment. We'll also get you some final thoughts on Chiefs Bills and some final thoughts from some of the biggest news and notes from around NFL Week 14. Plus, 2 games coming up tonight, Titans Dolphins as well as Packers Giants on the table tonight. The always very stupid Monday night doubleheader in which both games are on at the exact same time. Really not smart.
Doesn't make any sense.
Not a lick of it, especially when it's 2 games that are of equal levels of competition. Like the Dolphins are a minus 900 favorite against the Titans tonight. The Packers are also a fairly heavy favorite against the Giants. Like it would only be worse if these were 2 games that were both going to be hyper competitive. But at least if you have a game like, we get Dolphins, Titans, and then we also get Eagles, Cowboys. Okay, well, I know I can focus the main screen on the Eagles, Cowboys. No! Both games have heavy favorites and heavy underdogs, but so be it. Hopefully one of those heavy favorites, I should say, my favorite team wins. So if they don't, I will be in a very bad mood tomorrow. I just hope everyone's ready for that.
You put Tommy DeVito and Will Levis on television the same night. I don't appreciate that.
Hold on to that thought. I just saw a great question on Twitter earlier today. We're going to save that for the end of the hour when we get to some NFL thoughts. But first, it's time for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll jump right in, because we've got a bunch of them today. Let's start with the college football transfer portal. And let's start with a local product who is going to come back to his home state for his final year of eligibility. Hayden Wildcat grad Deshaun Hanukkah. After a year at Butler County Community College and 3 years for the Iowa State Cyclones, he is transferring back to his home state, and he's going to play his final year of eligibility for the Kansas Jayhawks. Lance Leipold and KU earning a commitment from the veteran college tight end, Deshaun Hanukkah. That is super cool. Locally, I believe I read this weekend, he was on a visit this weekend at KU. He was already home for winter break, and pretty easy to go take a quick unofficial visit half an hour from where your family lives to go check out Lawrence and KU. I believe I had read that Deshaun grew up a KU fan. I don't know that for sure, but if that's the case, that certainly didn't hurt. And bringing in another local guy, that is a big deal for KU, which continues to try to make inroads locally. 4 touchdown grabs for Deshaun last year at Iowa State. Now, he did get wrapped up in the gambling scandal at Iowa State, but as far as I'm aware, he was cleared. The reason he's eligible is he was cleared of any further punishment or anything. So that's great for him. It's great for KU. KU is losing Mason Fairchild, who is graduating, Trevor Cardell, as well as Jared Casey, both coming back. But that's super cool. Local kid going to end up at KU for his final year of eligibility. KU right now is in a 1-for-1 kind of situation with their recruits and commitments from the transfer portal. And KU did have a player enter the portal to free up a spot on the roster today. Tanaka Scott, wide receiver, he entered the portal after a couple of low-key years in Lawrence. All right, on to K-State. The big news today. Kobe Savage, the 2-time second-team All-Big 12 defensive back, announced today. I don't know if he has officially put it on social media, but every college football outlet has published it. He is entering the transfer portal with 1 year left to play. Again, he's been a really good player. He was a team captain this year for K-State. He himself was a JUCO transfer a couple years ago, 2 times earned postseason honors from the Big 12, and has been one of the most stable parts of what was the last couple of years a really good safety room for K-State and a really good defense overall. But he is going to transfer out for his final year of eligibility. similarly to Nate, not exactly the same situation, but somewhat similarly to Nate Matlack, you read today that this is a lot just about not necessarily playing time, but positional fit as much as anything.
There's some of that. There's a lot of factors at play here, and I can't speak to how much of a factor NIL consideration might have been. I know there are some rumblings that that's part of this, but I can't confirm or deny that. There have been some rumblings that so the position that Kobe Savage played in the 3-3-5 defense that has been preferred by Joe Klanderman in Manhattan, it's called the jack safety. It's like a hybrid position. It's not really a position that you see in the NFL because nobody in the NFL runs a 3-3-5. That is much more of a collegiate scheme, given like the width, the relative width of the hash marks in the playing field. And it's not really a scheme that has made any inroads in the NFL yet. So you still have two traditional safety roles in the NFL. Now, some teams they'll put three safeties on the field. Like you've seen Steve Spagnuolo do that with the Chiefs here and there. But a lot of times it's your traditional strong or box safety and your free safety. And there have been some rumblings that Savage would like to be in a system that would allow him to play in a more NFL ready role or a more NFL amenable role. There's also this too, and this may be, Occam's razor, right? Like Will Howard, this was the final year of Kobe Savage's eligibility beyond his COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
And Kansas State recruited and moved into this year with the understanding, or at the very least, the idea that Will Howard wasn't going to use his COVID year. And so they recruited ahead of Will Howard, and they brought in Avery Johnson. And Will Howard leaving is because he is going to use that COVID year, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to use it at a place that wasn't preparing for him to be there. And there's some similarity at the safety spot. They were three true freshman safeties that were recruited and came on campus this year, where the assumption was Savage was going to play this year and then he was going to go to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So Kansas State's ready to move forward without him, and he's not ready to leave the college game behind. So that may be the biggest reason of all, beyond whatever NIL considerations, beyond whatever scheme considerations. This just might be a mutual parting of the ways between a program that's ready for the future at that position and a player who would like to play one more year of college football as a grad transfer. So it's a loss because Savage was very productive, was a leader on that defense, was somebody who really embodied K-State football, was a spokesperson for the program. It's a loss in that regard, certainly, just like losing Will Howard was a loss in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But Kansas State was prepared to not have Kobe Savage in 2024. So I don't know that they are going to miss much more of a beat beyond if he were departing for the NFL draft. Like, they're ready for this, I think.
Yeah, it feels like much more of I don't know exactly what word to use, but like a conceptual loss. Like the thought of, dang, we could have had another year of Kobe Savage. That would have been nice to have. But by the same token, the program, like you very eloquently illustrated there, they were ready for this the entire time. And it's another one of those, hey, no hard feelings things. It's just a matter of it's a numbers game, and maybe it's a better situation elsewhere for you. Maybe it's a better situation elsewhere for us. We can make it work like that. And I know that's tough. I mean, he has been a really good player for this team. I know he and his whole family were super bought into K-State. His dad had tweeted a bunch about K-State over time, was very much all in. But, that's the business sometimes. That just happens. So those are your updates from the portal. Oh, one other thing. Jake Rubley, the former four-star prospect who was with K-State for, was it 3 seasons he was with K-State? Either way, didn't play a whole lot. He has transferred to Illinois State, going to the FCS level. That's a good program. Played for a national title within the last decade. And they can use some quarterback help. So that's, if you want to play and you want to go somewhere where you're going to be the guy, that's probably a good fit. There's good football in the Missouri Valley.
Sure there is, but I think that also shows just how much the lack of a real high school senior season really hurt his development as a four-star. Like you think about a four-star quarterback, he was the highest recruited K-State quarterback before Avery Johnson, and for him to finish up his career at Illinois State, that suggests that something didn't go quite according to plan between the senior year of high school and the recruiting process to where he's going to end up. Wish him well, but certainly there were, I'm sure, lots of examples of kids whose recruitment, whose development as a player was really dramatically affected by what happened in 2020. And I think Jake Rubley is a prime example of that.
I would say so too. I'm right there with you. While we're on the topic of college football, just real quick, a couple of other pieces of news and notes. One, not even remotely a surprise, Drake May has officially declared for the NFL draft, so he is not going to play in North Carolina's bowl game. Not a surprise at all there. Also, for those of you who follow recruiting, a big swing here. Steve Wiltfong of 24/7 has said he is flipping his prediction that Dylan Raiola, who's been one of the top quarterback prospects in the country for what feels like a decade now, is now projecting he's going to end up at Nebraska, where his dad, Dominic, famously played, who played the NFL for a long time.
Great offensive lineman, center, I believe.
Yes, he was a center. Really talented player, dirty as all hell, but a very good player.
Came up in the pipeline days back when Nebraska was churning out NFL offensive linemen every year.
Yeah, and his son had been originally like, oh, yeah, he's definitely going to go to Nebraska. And then it was, well, no, y'all suck. I'm going elsewhere. And as it turns out, Matt Rule, completely clueless in the NFL, knows what he's doing in college.
Yes.
We learned that with coordinators at both levels. We learned that with college coaches trying to go pro. Sometimes you're good at what you're good at, and you should stick with what you're good at. Matt Rule.
College coach. Really good college coach.
Nebraska was kind of like not as embarrassingly funny as they were with Scott Frost. This year, they still like really couldn't play offense, but they were so much more competent than they've been recently. And you can tell they got an adult in the room and they know what they're doing. Matt Rule's going to win a lot of games there.
And persistent rumors that they may end up the destination for Ohio State transfer Kyle McCord at quarterback for the short term. Apparently he and his Ohio State teammate, wide receiver Julian Fleming, were both on visits to Lincoln. That would substantially upgrade the offense, regardless of what you think of Kyle McCord. They had some real clowns at quarterback this last year in Nebraska. Yep. I hate to say it like that, but that's the truth, right? They had guys who, like Jeff Sims, couldn't stop turning the ball over. Heinrich Harburg is a linebacker trying to play quarterback, basically. Yeah. They were running like old triple option stuff with him. They didn't really have high-level quarterback. Chubba Purdy wasn't any good.
Nope. Imagine your brother, who was made fun of for being like talented but a goofy college quarterback, suddenly exploding into a star in the NFL while you were a much higher regarded college prospect and now like can't play. What a weird turn of events. But I'm sorry to cut you off.
No. Just saying that raising the floor at quarterback at Nebraska is gonna go a long way towards snapping that bowlless streak. We won't have the Huskers to kick around that much longer, is what I'm saying. Which, look, we've gotten some great Nebraska jokes off the last 7 years, and I don't regret any of them. Let's be honest. But we're not going to have the Huskers to kick around anymore. That's a program moving in the right direction.
Yeah, no, they've definitely got it going. But yeah, that's your update from college football and the transfer portal today.
All right. Let's get to some baseball with my headlines. These will be wide-ranging, but some baseball headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. First off, the Royals made a move over the weekend, and they have, in doing so, guaranteed themselves the 2024 World Series championship. Let me explain. The Royals signed left-handed reliever Will Smith to a one-year contract.
That Will Smith?
No, not the catcher, not the all-star catcher from the Dodgers, and not the one who was in Bad Boys and Ollie and a bunch of other things too. No, this Will Smith. Royals sickos will remember the 35 games that he pitched in for the Royals from 2012 to 2013 before being traded in the 2013-14 offseason. I believe even up for Nori Aoki. I'm double checking that now. It was a 1-for-1 deal. Will Smith for Nori Aoki, who played a nice little role on the pennant winner in 2014. Anyhow, Will Smith has built a pretty nice career as a relief pitcher. He was an all-star with the Giants in 2019, saved 37 games for the Braves in 2021. That's where the story really begins with Will Smith, who was acquired by the Braves in 2020. And in 2021, he saved 37 games and was one of the main men in the back of the Braves bullpen as they won an unlikely world championship. In 2022, he got off to a rockier start with the Braves and was traded during the season at the trade deadline, in fact, to the Houston Astros, who then went on to win the 2022 World Series. Last year, Will Smith hit the open market, and he signed a one-year contract worth $1.5 million with the Texas Rangers. And though his .440 earned run average doesn't look pretty on its face, the underlying numbers suggest he was a little bit unlucky. He still strikes out close to a batter per nine and allows less than a home run per nine. You take that from your relievers, particularly relievers with ninth inning experience. He saved 22 games for the Rangers this past season. Brendan, what did the Rangers do in 2023?
They won the World Series.
3 straight years Will Smith has been on the World Series champions, and I, for one, respect someone who is willing to go to great lengths to try and prove or disprove a hypothesis. Will Smith right now must believe he is the most powerful player in baseball. 3 straight years. His very presence has
yes, that is the exact reason why.
Yes, has been a portent for a World Series championship. For franchises that, otherwise maybe haven't been historically successful. It was the Braves' first title since 1995. Yes, the Astros have certainly been recently successful with or without Will Smith, but the Rangers won their first World Series title ever this past year with Will Smith on the team. What better way to test if it is indeed you and you alone who is bringing this championship glory with him when he joins the 26-man roster than by signing for the team that had the second worst record in all of Major League Baseball last year? If all else fails, surely a contending team might be interested in Smith's services at the trade deadline. You can probably look at this in a similar vein as you would have looked at the Aroldis Chapman signing from last year. Acquire a veteran reliever, see if you can't get a couple of good months out of them, spin them at the trade deadline for something useful.
But I think also, and we'll get to this here in just a second, I think this is also the kind of thing where you might still trade him regardless at the deadline if you're not contending, but I feel like this is part of a push to at least try to win a few more games for the Royals.
Yes, 100%. And further proof of that lies in the ongoing and persistent rumors from across baseball that the Royals are extremely serious in their pursuit of multiple veteran starting pitchers. Mark Feinsand of MLB.com tweeted earlier this morning, the Royals are indeed interested in Marcus Stroman, as John Heyman, also of MLB Network, reported, but Kansas City is casting a wide net in its search for pitching. Per sources, the Royals have also had discussions with Lucas Giolito, Michael Wacha, and Jack Flaherty. When you throw Seth Lugo in as well, a name that Ken Rosenthal connected with the Royals late last week, that's a whole new starting rotation's worth of veteran right-handed starting pitchers. Now, varying quality here, obviously. We talked a little bit about Stroman. I believe it was that Thursday's show or Friday's show you and I were talking about Stroman?
I think it must have been Friday.
Yeah, I think it was Friday's show. Stroman, an all-star last year for the Cubs, made 25 starts, went 10-9, 3.95 earned run average. Never been a big strikeout guy, has been a big ground ball guy, which would play just fine at Kauffman Stadium in front of one of the best defensive infields in baseball, with Bobby Witt Jr. and Maikel Garcia playing Gold Glove caliber defense on the left side of the infield. You could certainly make a Stroman signing make a lot of sense in that regard. He's the best of that bunch. Giolito, Wacha, and Flaherty have pitched well in their careers, but recent success has varied for all three of those pitchers. Jack Flaherty in particular, certainly not the same guy he was when he was 4th in the Cy Young voting and 13th in MVP voting back in 2019. He's dealt with some shoulder injuries, but He's still a strikeout per 9 guy and somebody who at least proved last year that he can be durable again. That was the big question after he missed chunks of 2021 and 22 due to injury. He took the ball 27 times last year for St. Louis and Baltimore and pitched 144 in the third innings. Problem is he pitched to an ERA right around 5, and that's not great, obviously. But, there's a track record. He's still only 27. Maybe last year was the consolidation, get healthy year. He figures some things out, a little better batted ball luck, and pitches better moving forward. Lucas Giolito, also a former All-Star who faded a little bit last season, pitched for 3 different teams, Chicago, the Angels, and the Guardians, and posted a 4.88 earned run average, his highest since 2018, but he's not that far removed from 3 straight seasons of finishing with Cy Young votes. His big problem last year, it's not the punch out. He struck out 10 guys per 9. He gave up 41 home runs in 184 in the third innings. Now, could that potentially be mitigated by pitching half your games at hitter or pitcher friendly Kauffman Stadium? Sure, it could, but obviously some concerns there. Michael Wacha has had an interesting career. He was great early in his career with St. Louis, an all-star back in 2015. He's become a journeyman, playing for 4 different teams the last 4 seasons, but pitching effectively each of the last 2 years. In 2022 was 11-2 with a 3.32 ERA for Boston. Then last year went 14-4 with a 3.22 ERA for the Padres. Not a big strikeout guy, only around 8 per 9, and not terribly durable. Hasn't made more than 24 starts in a season since 2017, but still, if you're looking for innings, he can give you 120 to 140 innings a year, and they're generally of pretty high quality. So there are arguments to be made for and against all 4 of the starting pitchers that we have just discussed. But were the Royals to outlay significant sums for any of these guys? Number one, would they pass the better than Jordan Lyles test? Absolutely and unequivocally, the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Number 2, can you be more competitive on an every 5-day basis if you're adding these guys to a mix that includes Cole Reagans and includes Brady Singer? The answer to that, I also believe, to be yes. And that should be encouraging for Royals fans who would like their team to, I don't know, maybe not lose 21 of their first 28 games, maybe not lose 100 games, maybe be interesting around when training camp for the Chiefs starts. I know that's all we've been wanting here on this program. And you can go a ways towards doing that if you could bring in, I'd say, any 2 of those 4. I would prioritize Stroman. I think he'd be a great fit. And then if you get one of those other guys on a 1-year prove-it deal, I would feel I would be encouraged. Let's say that. I'm not sure I'm ready to place it in the hierarchy of baseball's best rotations or anything. But if you give me Stroman, Reagans, Singer, and 1 of Giolito, Wacha, and Flaherty, that starts to look a lot better 1 through 4. That's a lot better than anything they've been able to offer the last handful of years.
So Michael Wacha last year, when you throw in incentives and signing bonus and all that, he made $8 million for 1 year with the Padres because he had a bunch of club options declined. Would the Royals be able is he going to get that much this year when he's going to turn 33 years old? Like, could you get him for slightly less than that? Like, if you could pair Stroman and Wacha together, not that that's necessarily the best option, just, a hypothetical setup. And that was your rotation. Again, Reagans, Singer, throw in Stroman. Stroman's your number 1, probably. Wacha and then Lyles to eat innings as your 5-man. Like, that's pretty good, man. I don't know that you're going to make the playoffs with that group, but you can watch the games. It's not, we're on our 3rd bullpen day in the last 4 games. All right, well, peace. I'm done. I'm good. Could you theoretically get some if Daniel Lynch gets back fully healthy? Could you see him compete for that 5th spot instead of Lyles?
And yes, I think you could. And you feel a lot better about either of those 2 guys if they're your number 5. Jordan Lyles was the number 2 starter for the Royals last year.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And you saw how that went. So, this is encouraging stuff. Like, the Royals needed to show at some point that they were serious about improving. And you don't strictly improve from within. You got to spend a little money. You've got to loosen the purse strings and you got to go address some weaknesses, because there's not a big wave of pitchers that's only a year or two away from being good major leaguers. No, the wave of pitching talent is probably 3 years away at best. You got to win some baseball games now. You're losing the generation of Royals fans that had almost bought all the way back in after the World Championship in 2015. You got to do something a little drastic. This may not be drastic enough for everyone's taste, but it's definitely a step forward.
I'm very curious what Stroman is going to end up getting paid wherever he ends up signing. He had a $21 million player option with the Cubs this year, and all Cubs fans were expecting it. I was expecting him to opt into it. I thought the way because his first half, he was awesome, deserved to be an all-star. He was incredible in the first half. I think his first 14 of his first 15 or all 14 of his first 14 starts of the year were quality starts. He was awesome. And then he got hurt when the Cubs went to London and really struggled because I don't think he ever got healthy. And the weather getting warmer hurt him a little bit. It's just not a good combination for him. He opted out of $21 million.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean he thinks he's going to get more than that? And if he does, okay, fine. I would be fine with the Royals spending more for him on a per year basis than that. But does that then mean you're not going to sign one of those other three guys?
MLB Trade Rumors does contract projections for players. They predicted 2 years, $44 million for Stroman. I do $22 million a year for like Stroman's not an ace, but is he a solid number two? Absolutely. And could he play up in front of an infield defense like what the Royals have put together? I think so.
All right, let me give you we have to get to a break here, but let me give you a quick hypothetical offseason. We heard the Royals had at least $30 million to spend, right? So if we're assuming that's for this year for free agency or for players acquired in trades or whatever, if I gave you an offseason where your key moves were $22 million per year for 2 years for Marcus Stroman, 1 year, roughly $8 million for, let's go with Michael Wacha. That's what he made last year. And then you're able to get an unspectacular but playable MLB bat for somewhere. Like your sixth or seventh hitter, essentially, for probably a fairly cheap, but again, playable contract. Would you be content with that offseason?
I think that gets you a lot closer to respectability. I don't think that gets you to the postseason. I think you probably have to bring in, if not two bats or maybe three starting pitchers.
Sure.
But I think the goal ought to be, because the Central is this is the difference between the Royals and some of the other also rans in Major League Baseball. There's nothing the A's can do to catch the Astros and the Rangers. That's not happening. There's nothing the Rockies can do to catch the Dodgers, especially since, in case you missed it, the Dodgers just added Shohei Ohtani. That's not happening. Those 100-loss teams are spinning their wheels if they think, oh, I'm going to go add two starting pitchers and a bat, and this is going to get me back in contention. No, the hell it's not. The Nationals are in the same boat. They're not catching the Braves or the Mets with that little off-season business. But you might be able to catch the 87-win Twins, especially since they lost Sonny Gray and aren't likely to do a lot of spending this offseason. You could get back in the mix in the American League Central if you just try to be a little bit serious.
Well, and the other thing that helps too, all right, right now, players worth a damn on the A's. Building blocks of a team that could be competitive on the A's.
No.
Rockies.
Nolan Jones, Ezekiel Tovar.
Okay, there's a couple. But again, really tough division. The Central, crappy division. Those other teams don't have Bobby Witt Jr. Cole Reagans looked like a legitimate
number one.
Bobby Witt, Brady Singer, up and down career, but at his best, that looks like a guy who's a number two or a number three in your rotation.
So
the
totally
Royals,
fine. Yeah.
Pasquantino, healthy, legitimate first baseman or DH, legit guy you want in the order every day. The Royals at least have a couple of foundational pieces you can build upon. And again, make yourself respectable for 4 of the 6 months of the season, please. That's the next step. You got to keep building on it, but that's the next step. We've got to get to a break here. We'll owe you a couple of commercials. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll get some thoughts on Chiefs Bills. We will also we'll mention what the Dodgers are doing with Shohei Ohtani, because I think it's worth talking about, because it is crazy. We're going to get to that coming up on the other side of this timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. Before we get to some other NFL notes, we did have a comment, a question from Jason on the YouTube feed. We'll try to get to that in just a little bit. We'll get you some final thoughts on Chiefs-Bills from yesterday as well. I feel like we've got to bring up this Shohei Ohtani news because he's the best player in baseball. He's the most unique athlete we have in sports right now. I don't even think there's a comparison right now. So he signed this weekend is signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Had to get a few procedural things done. He's going to end up in LA.
He broke the news, by the way, on his own Instagram account, which is very, very funny after the hysterics the internet was in regarding a private jet flying from Santa Ana, California to Toronto. Everybody thought that it was Ohtani was going to the Blue Jays. There was a pitcher for the Blue Jays who booked out a sushi restaurant, and everybody was so convinced it was the Blue Jays. And then the next day, Shohei Ohtani's just like, nope, here's a kind of grainy Dodgers logo on my Instagram. That's where I'm going. I don't know how you reacted when you first saw the 10-year, $700 million that is going to be his contract. I legitimately spit take. Like, I almost choked on my own spit, like, for real.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration for dramatic effect. That is what happened to me when I saw that number for the first time.
I yelped. That's the best way to describe it. So he's getting $700 million. $700 million. And honestly, when you consider the fact that he is one of the very best hitters in baseball, and at the same time is also one of the very best pitchers in baseball, even though he's not going to pitch this year, that makes a lot of sense. He's going to the Dodgers. They've got money. They can outbid you. That makes a lot of sense. Also, think of the other business this is going to do for the Dodgers. They're going to sell out Dodger Stadium constantly all year.
They're going to be the team in the Far East
and
in Japan.
Yeah, you want to talk about jersey sales? You want to talk about Dodgers and MLB branded Ohtani merch? Sorry if you wanted Ohtani Christmas gifts. No way.
You're not just buying the baseball player, which is an incredible baseball player, but you're going so far beyond. Like what Trout was at $43.5 million a year in his 10-year deal, $435 million, $425 in that neighborhood. To blow past that dollar figure says that you're not just talking about what the player is worth as a producer of baseball statistics. You're talking about what the player is worth in terms of like cultural cachet and all that other stuff that you talked about. That's what the Dodgers are paying for here, as much as they are paying for the guy who led the American League in home runs and slugging percentage last year. And oh, by the way, might be able to be resume being one of the best pitchers in the league once he rehabs from Tommy John surgery.
He won an MVP and he barely played the last month of the season.
Yeah.
And it was a runaway. Like
he wasn't even close.
He could have stopped in mid-August instead of mid-September and he would have won it.
There wasn't even a debate. It wasn't even like, oh man, Corey Seager's having a big session. No,
just not even a thing. So he's getting $700 million, but it's not simply he's getting $70 million a year. You say, oh, is he getting like weird bonuses? Are we doing some of the things like the Mahomes contract? Well, no, not exactly. You say, oh, are they deferring it? They're doing a Bobby Bonilla situation? Yes, but also no. He's getting deferred money. He'll get deferred money for a decade after this contract with the Dodgers ends. He is deferring $680 million. And you say, wait, that's a lot. I said, yeah, it's all but $20 million of the total contract. He is going to get $2 million a year from this contract during the length of the contract. And for the 10 years after, $68 million a year. And this, if you're saying, how is that possible? How is that legal? Oh, it's very legal. The CBA for Major League Baseball, I've seen multiple people post it on my timeline in the last half hour here. Article 16 of the CBA. There shall be no limitations on either the amount of deferred compensation or percentage of total compensation attributable to deferred compensation for which a uniform player contract may provide. So baseball allows you to just say, hey, we're going to pay you $1 billion. We're just going to give you $1 a year, and we're going to defer it to all after your contract. You can do whatever you want, and that's what the Dodgers are doing with Ohtani. outrageous, but it's within the rules.
Yeah, and Ohtani uniquely positioned to do this because he makes $50 million a year in endorsements, so he doesn't need the baseball money. We have heard of athletes like socking away their on-field earnings because they can live on their endorsements. Marshawn Lynch famously did this for many years, just lived off of whatever endorsement money and socked away the rest. But there aren't a lot of guys making 50 mil in endorsements. Not a lot of baseball players doing that. But Ohtani is, and this allows him to defer that. And what it allows the Dodgers to do is only count $46 million a year towards the competitive balance tax, which will enable them to spend more money, put more money on their payroll, pay less tax, and still sign some more elite talent, like maybe Ohtani's countryman, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is one of the most desired free agent pitchers on the market. Or maybe they trade for Tyler Glasnow of the Tampa Bay Rays and absorb that $25 million salary for next year. They can do that without getting taxed because Shohei Ohtani is being nice. Like, good for the goodness of Shohei Ohtani's heart, but like 2034 is not a real year, man. Like, none of us are living to see 2034. Come on now. Be real.
Fake year,
not real.
But yeah, no, it really is incredible. It really, really is. And he's set forever. His kids are set forever. His grandkids are set forever. And again, I've seen a lot of now on Twitter, like, oh, we need a salary cap. Oh, you can't allow this. Everything is so broken. Any team could have done this. Cubs could have done this. The Yankees could have done this. The Blue Jays could have. Anyone could have. It's just, the Dodgers did, and maybe that'll change in the next collective bargaining agreement. Who knows? We do have another break to get to. When we come back, some final thoughts on the NFL weekend and Chiefs-Bills. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. We had a question in from Jason on the YouTube comments, our resident Dolphins fan here in the state. Jason asked us, who's going to be the number one seed in the AFC? Ravens? Dolphins are in action tonight. Chiefs are still alive for it, although barely, with just 4 games left for Kansas City. Who's going to get that number one seed?
That is a great question. I think the Ravens dodged a bullet, it sounds like, with Kyle Hamilton. He left the game with an injury yesterday, but it sounds like it's more of a day-to-day situation. That bodes well for them. Not boding particularly well are that they have to go on the road to a desperate Jacksonville team and San Francisco the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's tough.
So, and then they play Miami. So, that's going to be a tough one to get cranked up for on New Year's Day. But right now it looks like Miami, I don't see them losing. I could absolutely, looking at the Ravens' final 4 games, I could see them losing 2. I could even maybe see them losing 3. I have a harder time seeing Miami losing 2. They've got Dallas on Christmas Eve. They've got the Ravens on New Year's Eve. They wrap up with the Bills, who might be playing for a playoff berth. It's certainly within the realm, but I think that's a little less of a demanding schedule. All those games but the Baltimore game are at home for Miami. So I'll say this, though. If it all ends up at 12-5, because I do think the Chiefs are going to win out. I agree with Matt Verderame. I said it last night in our instant reaction. I think the Chiefs are winning out. Even after the frustration and the disappointment of last night, I don't think the Chiefs are losing another game. I think they're finishing 12-5. I think that's probably most likely for the Ravens. And if that happens to the Dolphins, I don't know what the 3-way tiebreaker looks like. I think it's Baltimore, but it would maybe depend on the AFC record at that point.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure what it would be either, because I believe had the Chiefs won last week, they would have been number 1.
I think
even though they all have the same record.
I think that's right.
So I'm not sure what it'll look like, especially since the Dolphins and Ravens are going to play each other. It probably won't be determined until then. So I'm going to go with Miami. The Ravens' schedule is harder.
I'll cop out and say whoever wins that game. Whoever wins that game, and I like Miami being at home in that game, not having to go play in the cold in December. It's a big edge for any warm weather team.
I know it is sometimes a cop out when it comes to the Dolphins when you're giving an analysis like, oh, they don't want to play up north. They don't want to play where it's cold.
It's their whole history, man.
Would you want to play where it's cold? Given the choice, would you rather play in Miami in January or in Kansas City or Baltimore in January? I think that's a pretty easy answer there.
The last truly awesome Dolphins team was 1992. They got rolled on in the conference championship game there by there was a home game, but they lost that game to Buffalo. But yeah, historically, that was not what you wanted. Go on the road in the playoffs to a cold weather location if you were the Dolphins.
Yeah, especially for a team now that's a little bit more built on finesse and high flying and all that. I think you would much rather get those extra games at home. When you look back, when we take a few days and look back, and it's now been approaching 24 hours, 23 of them at least, since the end of Chiefs-Bills. What's going to be the lasting image of this game? Is it going to be the fact that this was just a competitive game with a team that was back against the wall, and it was potentially a game that the Chiefs could have had to really give themselves some momentum? They just came up a little bit short. Or is it going to be the more negative side of things that this team just can't get out of its own way?
I use this analogy when we did the post-game reaction last night. We know exactly how close the Chiefs are to being a great team.
Mm-hmm.
We keep re-quantifying it every week. How close are they to being a great team? Well, now we know. It's however far Kadarius Toney was when he was standing off sides. That's how close. That's what we're dealing with the Chiefs. And that's why I think the frustration is so palpable. It's not just because they aren't getting it done. They aren't finding ways to win. They are making the mistakes. They aren't getting out of their own way. They aren't finishing games. They don't feel inevitable like they have in the AFC the last 5 years. That's certainly part of it. But I think the other part of it is knowing that it can be better. Sometimes it's as simple as attention to detail. Just watching the ball into your hands all the way, Kadarius. Just really checking to see if you're lined up appropriately, Kadarius. Just not false starting, Juwan. It's the little things, and they keep adding up, and they keep killing this team. And it's easy to say, if this were a talent issue, you'd say, well, they just don't have the guys. It's not a talent issue. It's not. They don't have great wide receivers. They didn't have great wide receivers last year and they won the Super Bowl. It's not a talent thing. They are not being out-talented on a week-in, week-out basis. They aren't getting dump trucked. The only game they've lost by more than one score this year was Denver, and they were -5 in the turnover department in that game. It's right there. It is still attainable for the Chiefs. And the question is, are they going to feel that way, or are they going to throw in the towel? And I don't think this is a throw in the towel bunch.
I think this is a Chiefs team that is in need of a little bit of a refocus. And that's that's not a terrible thing. Sometimes teams need that. I said that about the Bills a couple of weeks ago that, hey, this is a team that I think it was when they played the Bengals, maybe. I said that this is probably going to end up being a lost year. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. For what it's worth, I'm still worried that they might not make the playoffs. They've got a tough schedule coming up. But that sometimes you just need to reset. You need to have a bad year or a down year to sort of get your bearings and realize, hey, these are the core issues we have with this team. We need to take and dedicate some time this offseason, this coming training camp, start of next year, whatever, to improving upon those things so we can get to a championship level. Now, the Chiefs are better than the Bills. Even though they lost, the Chiefs are a better team than the Bills. I have absolutely no problem and no reservations about saying that. But I think the same principle applies. And some of them are more obvious, like the wide receivers just aren't good enough for this Chiefs team. But some of them are also more intangible, that there is a lack of focus. There has been a lack of attention to detail and things like that need to be improved upon. And sometimes you got to hit rock bottom to know that you got to climb back up. This Chiefs team isn't going to hit rock bottom. Rock bottom for the Chiefs would be somehow going 2-15 with Patrick Mahomes. That's just not going to happen. But I think it is going to take a little bit of a wake-up call. The Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, that was a wake-up call. Different kind of bottoming out than this. They still made the Super Bowl, but they just got blown away because their offensive line was a disaster.
And what they do, they retool the offensive line.
And now, maybe this offseason, you do cut a couple of guys who have been kind of knuckleheads on the field this year. You maybe reinvigorate the offense a little bit with a new piece or two. You change things up during training camp a little bit to try to get that focus back longer term. I think that's going to help the Chiefs. So that's an off-season issue. I just don't know if there's anything you can still do this year that's going to fix that problem. And the amazing thing is the Chiefs are still in the thick of it, even with that lack of focus. We have to get to a final timeout. Final words next on 580 Sports Talk. Time for a quick final word. Let's wrap it up. Dan, you're first.
Final word from me. Forgive Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid the inconvenience of being human. They were frustrated about the officials. I don't like to use the term bad look. I just prefer to say it was a human moment for those guys. They'll be better. They'll learn from it. Hopefully the Chiefs will be better too.
Final word for me from this weekend. Beating Missouri is always a great feeling if you're the Kansas Jayhawks, and it is especially gratifying when then the opposing team's head coach talks about how great it was to win 14 minutes of a game on a road in a hostile environment. Great stuff, Dennis Gates. That's a coach you can believe in, picking up moral victories in rivalry games. We're back tomorrow from 2 until 6. We'll talk to Michael Swain about all things Jayhawks. We've got plenty of Chiefs to get to as well. That's coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk. But until then, for Jake LeBon, for Dan Lucero, I am Brendan Rosinski. Check out the podcast at 580WIBW.com. Check out the 580 Sports Talk YouTube. We'll talk to you tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk.